across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Past 6, top of the morning Talk Breakfast. Mark Dolan with you for a very busy show today. Lovely to have your company. Happy Sunday, one and all. Breaking this morning, Donald Trump claims the new supreme leader of Iran may well be dead. But has the US president bitten off more than he can chew in the Middle East? And with misery for Brits as energy prices spiral and the cost of the pump heads further north at your petrol stations, can the Chancellor Rachel Reeves even afford to help us with our energy bills? Meanwhile, with Westminster insiders predicting that Starmer will be gone by the summer, will his replacement in number 10 bring back free movement in an effort to rekindle our relationship with the EU? Meanwhile, the scandal of BP and Shell making 5 billion quid since the start of the war in Iran. And in a Talk Breakfast exclusive, anger in Spain as their mass immigration project impacts society and the economy. Is Spain now a warning to the world about open borders? Now, my priority for the whole of the show is to get your opinions on the radio and on the telly. So give us a call, 0344 499 1000. I'm delighted to say that Tommy is back taking your calls. He's had the surgery, and let me tell you, he's never looked better. You know, the sag has gone from the chin, which is nice. The bum has been lifted. And the crow's feet have been ironed out. Great to have him. Directing our TV output today is the one and only Davis. We love Davis. He's getting a great job done. If you want to watch the show, just head to YouTube, search Talking Up, we pop. David Rhodes is our lead engineer, pressing the buttons as always. And I'm delighted to say that we've found the money in the budget for a far superior executive producer. And it is Jodie who's in the house today, cracking the whip. You're going to notice a significant improvement in the quality of the output. Lovely to have her with us. A very big show. Can't do it without you. It is 6:05. As the saying goes, let's talk. And let's have a look at today's front pages. We start with the Mail on Sunday newspaper as pressure mounts on the Prime Minister over his damaging decision to appoint former minister as US ambassador. That's, of course, Mandelson. The headline, Epstein's illicit drugs and Botox for Peter Mandelson. This is an exclusive. Jeffrey Epstein illegally supplied Peter Mandelson with drugs whilst he was a government minister, according to the Mail on Sunday. Bombshell emails also expose how the paedophile financier Epstein arranged for the Labour peer to have cosmetic Botox injections whilst he visited him in New York. The astonishing exchanges came while Epstein was under house arrest after his conviction for soliciting sex from a 14-year-old girl. Now, this is a truly shocking story. And I've got to tell you that this Mandelson scandal is a car crash in slow motion for the Prime Minister. Now, there hasn't been a Prime Minister in history that hasn't appointed people that have either been bad at their job or have been proven to be immoral or dishonest, because you're dealing with human beings. If you've got a team under you, there will be wrong-uns. There will be bad apples in the barrel. Everyone understands that. But Starmer knew exactly who Peter Mandelson was when he appointed him to the most important job in British diplomacy, UK diplomat to the United States. Starmer knew full well that he was a wrong, and we all did. You don't need due diligence. You don't need to sit down with Peter and say, mate, Are you a changed man? Have you learnt your lessons of the past? This is a guy that left the cabinet in disgrace on 2 separate occasions. We know that he's been caught with his fingers in the till, financial impropriety, and now an issue about his relationship, his friendship with a disgraced paedophile. Don't forget that Mandelson stayed at Epstein's New York home whilst Epstein was in jail for the crime of child trafficking. And Starmer thought, yeah, he's the man for me, for the top job in British diplomacy. So I've got to tell you that although people are not down the pub talking about Epstein and Mandelson, I get that. When you're in the Wetherspoons, you're down at the Dog and Duck on a Saturday night having a few pints after a stressful week. No one is there at the darts board or at the pool table going, have you heard about Peter Mandelson? They're not. What are people talking about? They're talking about our open borders, aren't they? Illegal immigration. People breaking into the country and getting paid 40 grand to leave. That's what people are talking about. People are talking about the cost of petrol and diesel at the pump. People are talking about the eye-watering cost of a visit to the supermarket. I've got PTSD now from going to Sainsbury's and Co-op because it's £4.20 for a pot of yoghurt that I like because I've got my protein goals, Jodie. My body's a temple. So I like this Greek yoghurt. Do you know that it's F-A-G-E, Fahe, I think they pronounce it? God knows what it's called. One of the main, it's £4.20 in my local Co-op. Other supermarkets are available. That's what people are talking about. They are talking about the cost of living. They're talking about the fact that their kids can't get a job or can't get on the housing ladder. They're talking about crime, that you can't wear a nice watch now or buy a nice car or walk down the street and take your mobile phone out of your pocket. May woe betide you if you try to take your phone out of your pocket because it will be snatched by a thug with a balaclava on an e-bike. That's what people are talking about. They're not talking about Peter Mandelson and Jeffrey Epstein, but, and here comes the but, it raises a real concern about Starmer and not just his judgment, terrible appointment. Let's be clear, Starmer's always wrong. He is literally just, his judgment is shocking. It's shot to pieces. Always on the wrong side of the argument, tries to reverse Brexit, pretends he's Jeremy Corbyn, campaigns for Corbyn to become Prime Minister, by the way. That wasn't a great call, was it? Pro all the COVID lockdowns, wanted more. He's always on the wrong side of every argument, right? He's destroyed the economy with his socialist policies. He's giving away sovereign territory in the Chagos Islands. We're paying for the pressure. So his judgment is one thing, but it's his honesty. It is his morals that are the biggest problem. And he gave the impression when he said, oh, I'm so sorry for believing Peter's lies. He gave the impression to you and I that he'd sat down with Mandelson before that appointment and Mandelson had said, Prime Minister, I'm a changed man. You can trust me. Well, there was no conversation. There was no sit down. Starmer didn't speak to Mandelson before, during or after the appointment. So therefore, I believe that Starmer's a liar. And that's why I think that the Mandelson story, although people are not talking about it down the pub, it will be on the public radar that our Prime Minister is not an honest man, that he's duplicitous, that he's slippery. And that's the problem. That is the political fallout from this Mandelson story, is the values of our Prime Minister, right? The personality, his moral makeup. No one believes a word he says. Sunday Telegraph, Starmer may send drones to the Gulf. Finally, a bit of help from the United States, having refused access to British air bases so that US jets could refuel. Thousands of interceptors pioneered in Ukraine could tackle Iranian weapons, is the headline. Britain to have open EU border if Labour rebels win. Now, this is my worst nightmare. Allies of the Prime Minister have warned Brexit rebels that rejoining the EU customs union would force Britain to open its borders. Senior Labour sources told The Telegraph that performative cabinet ministers who support a trade bloc with Brussels have clearly not thought it through, because the UK would be forced to restore freedom of movement. Cabinet ministers, including potential leadership contender Wes Streeting, also David Lammy, Peter Carl, have all suggested Sir Keir Starmer should consider rejoining the customs union, which they said would boost economic growth. Well, none of this is true. This flirtation with the EU is purely political. Be clear that the customs union would impact our economy. First of all, the customs union only affects physical goods. Now, 80% of our economy is services, financial services, insurance, you name it, AI. 20% of our economy is the movement of goods, right? A fraction of which then goes to the EU. And most of the big companies have now oiled the wheels so that it's very easy for goods to pass from the UK into the bloc and vice versa. It's all been sorted. The car industry didn't blink after Brexit. And you still got your Nissan Micras and your Toyotas and your Fords being built very easily for parts coming from the EU over to the UK. It hasn't been a problem. And don't forget, this Brexit, right, apparently it's been such a disaster. Did you know that we've had higher economic growth since Germany following our departure from the European Union? We have outpaced Germany since Brexit. Did the Germans have Brexit too? I'm so confused. Now, I voted Remain because I thought there would be short to medium term economic disruption. I thought Brexit was a decent idea, but I didn't fancy the economic disruption. There has been none. Look at the graphs. We've had more investment in the UK than any other European country since we left. We've saved £20 billion a year for the privilege of membership. Well, we've been out a decade. So when did we stop paying the membership fee? I think it was 2020. So my mathematics will say that we've saved £120 billion already. That's not bad, is it? That is money in the kitty. But the next Prime Minister, and there will be a next Prime Minister, because Starmer is not going to survive the year. He'll be gone by Christmas. He'll be the stuffed turkey. But whoever replaces him, I promise you, they will bring us closer to the EU. Now, if it's a customs union, that is not going to improve our economy. It may be a cost to our economy because you'll have EU red tape. And here's the other thing about the customs union. No more trade deals. They are gone. It is finito to the trade deals. And what the Telegraph is suggesting is that we could have free movement as well. So if we were to do this customs union, that would be ideological, not economic. The point is, we're out. We've had the pain of departure. I will grant you that there was a disruption. I will grant you that it was very difficult for smaller businesses that export to the EU to do what they do. I understand. And I actually understand that there are some smaller outlets in the UK that no longer export to the EU because of the red tape and because of the cost. I will grant you that. But the bigger picture is that since we left, we've had higher economic growth than Germany. We've been able, although of course we've chosen not to, but we've been able to control our borders. Our freedom from Europe means that we will never have the Eurozone. And let's not forget, this is a Labour government and a future Labour Prime Minister that will be in by the autumn that wants us to rekindle a relationship with and tie ourselves down to a dying economic bloc. Did you know that 20 years ago, the US economy and the EU economy were the same size? 20 years ago, the EU was an economic powerhouse, the same size as America. Did you know that since then, in 2 decades, America is now 60% bigger than the EU? It's a dying economic bloc. Why is the EU dying, by the way? Woke left-wing policies, the culture of welfarism, where it pays to stay home, not go to work. Net zero, which is economic and industrial suicide. Open borders, which has a big impact on European economies. We're going to speak to a lady in Spain later about anger around immigration in Spain. They've just granted asylum to 500,000 illegal immigrants, which is devastating for the Spanish people. But they've had open borders. Of course, their societies are falling apart and there is crime and the multicultural experiment, a hot mess, far worse than what we're going through here in the UK. That is why the EU is dying. High taxes. It just doesn't work. As Donald Trump said a few years ago, everything woke turns to, and then he used the S word, which I'm not going to on a family show. But there you go, folks. So listen, as we've been saying for a long time now, Dave the engineer, Starmer might be terrible, but his replacement will be far worse. 6:16 in the morning, Sunday Express, fresh spike in migrants applying to be EU citizens. Isn't that nice? What a lovely headline. A record number of migrants have applied for British citizenship since the three main political parties vowed to crack down on welfare handouts for foreign nationals. Nearly 300,000 people lodged applications with the Home Office last year, up from 250,000 in 2024. It followed a huge political battle over immigration, with Labour, the Conservatives and Reform UK all vowing to dramatically tighten access to the NHS, welfare and social housing should they win the next general election. But here's what I think. I think that people from overseas should not receive benefits because they're not British. It's not complicated. If you come from overseas and if you're able to justify why you're here and you arrive legally and you do the paperwork and the authorities say you're in, that's not a problem. But no benefits whatsoever. Because if I went to America or Australia, or if I went to New Zealand or Canada, if I went to the United Arab Emirates, do you think I'd get benefits from day one? Do me a favour. We're the only idiots that do that. Because we think it's our job to house the world, feed the world and provide medical care to the world. Meanwhile, our own citizens cannot get a GP appointment, cannot get a school place, cannot get a job and have to take out a mortgage every time they fill up the Nissan Micra. It's a shocker, isn't it? It makes no sense, but that's the establishment elite who are working against the interests of the British people, which is why change is coming. Daily Star, TV legend calls in cops. Gladiator jet, my stalker nightmare. The Sunday Mirror, we will fight to keep bills down. Labour vows to help as panic hits the pumps. By the way, it's not help. If Rachel does anything, and by the way, she'll be, I'm going to help the most needy. Well, actually, we're all needy. I don't know anyone that's not struggling at the moment. But Labour will they will be there to help people that are already on benefits, stuck at home, doing nothing, watching daytime telly and chowing down Domino's pizza, because that is Labour's constituency. So if there's any help, and there's no help because it will be further borrowing, which will be paid for by future generations. There's no help because it will mean higher taxes. There's no help because the so-called help will be inflationary, and that's a tax on everyone. So you're getting nothing from Rachel if she's going to, in inverted commas, help you. But what she won't do is she won't help anybody that's a member of Alarm Clock Britain that actually puts more in than they take out. Because you are the mugs, you're the low-hanging fruit. Sun on Sunday, TV pedo Alford dead in jail. It's a very tragic story of an actor who was a big star, Grange Hill, London's Burning, but he committed the most awful crime against young girls and went to prison for it, 8 years, found dead in a jail cell. Sunday Times, Epstein victim was trafficked to Al Fayed, the former Harrods owner. So much more to get through. 6:20, this is Talk Breakfast. Next up, live in the studio, one of my favourite journalists for more front pages.
We genuinely are on resignation watch. There is absolutely no doubt about it. Labour MPs, they say, listen, Keir, your position is untenable. This is all about appointing that rat, Peter Mandelson, who faces a criminal investigation.
Can Keir Starmer survive the Mandelson scandal? We have breaking news for you. We've just been talking about, of course, Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff. We've now had another resignation from Number 10. Keir Starmer's Director of Communications, Tim Allen, has now also resigned. The plot is thickening. The noose is tightening.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, you're listening to Talk Breakfast. Mark Dolan with you until 10 a.m. I'll be tackling the issue of the Prime Minister's character in a special Dolan's Dispatch at exactly 9 a.m. Meanwhile, the scandal of mass immigration in Spain. That's a Talk Breakfast exclusive at 8:30. You won't believe it. They've granted asylum to 500,000 illegal immigrants, and we'll speak to a local in Spain who is far from happy. But what about this? Starmer's replacement may well take us back into the customs union with the EU, which would likely involve free movement. Margaret has messaged the show. First message of the morning. Good morning, Margaret. Happy Sunday. I hope you're well. Margaret says, good morning, Mark. The reason Starmer wants to rejoin the EU is that he needs someone telling him what to do, and the EU will do just that. And he'll say, we have to do it as it's EU policy. That's interesting. I think you're right. It's a political and ideological straitjacket that the Prime Minister covets. This from Michael. Good morning, Mark. Starmer must go to the Falklands immediately to personally inform the British inhabitants and troops there that he intends to surrender the islands to Argentina and make an urgent personal statement from the dispatch box if he has the guts. Well, I'm sure he'd love to do that. Can you imagine if someone like Starmer had been Prime Minister in 1982 when we had the Falklands War? Do you think he'd have shown the courage and conviction? And would he have demonstrated the national self-interest as demonstrated by Margaret Thatcher? I don't think so. I don't think the Starmer would fight for this country. This is a guy, don't forget, that chose Davos in Switzerland and the billionaire elite over Westminster. Phil says, good morning, Mark. It's Phil in Coventry here. Starmer is not only a liar, he's an out-and-out traitor, cozying up to pro-Palestinian Islamists, telling Muslims that they are the face of Britain's future. He is dangerous and a traitor. Kate says, good morning, Mark. Walkies time for me. Same yoghurt, Aldi, $1.99. Kate, Rosie, Poppy and Bertie Bear. Well, Kate, can I congratulate you for getting hold of some reasonably priced yoghurt? Because my Farhay Greek yoghurt, 5%, £4.20 in my co-op. Live in the studio, a man that can afford yoghurts. It's the one and only Charlie Rowley, broadcaster, commentator and former special advisor to some of the biggest names in politics. Good morning.
Good morning, Mark. Nice
Very good to see you. Do you balk at the cost of the supermarket? Because I do.
Yes, absolutely. No, you can always tell when prices are going up. I mean, I'm not a huge food shopper. I know that sounds a bit ridiculous. I do eat food. I do shop. But I'm a single being. So, you know, a food shop for one, a weekly shop for one, is always a lot less than planning for a family.
Do you wind up, is it all about the takeouts and the Deliveroo? How do you feed yourself?
Occasionally. I'm very lucky that I have quite a good group of friends, an extensive sort of address book where
so you go around to them, they feed you.
There are lots of dinners at stake, so but also, you know, you can get a nice breakfast here in the canteen, bit of lunch here if you're in the afternoon.
Decent. It's not bad, is it? It's not bad. Well, I can't go to the supermarket and not be 10 quid lighter. You know, even if I've gone in for a pint of milk. I'll come. You won't get change for a tenner by the time you've got a few bits and pieces. And I was just saying earlier in the show that this is what people are talking about. The Mandelson story is important, and I think that it adds to the perception of the Prime Minister as a duplicitous and devious man of poor judgment. So I think the mood music is not good for Starmer in relation to Mandelson. But paraphrasing an advisor to Bill Clinton in the 90s, it's the economy, stupid. And that is where people are really feeling the pinch. And that may well be what does for Starmer.
No, absolutely. And look, you know, when he staked his whole election campaign in 2024 of growth to help people's pound in the pocket, to make sure that actually that they're feeling the end of the cost of living crisis, that actually people feel better off. We're not seeing any of that, and I don't think we will, because whatever slight fluctuation in inflation or interest rates or whatever, a bit of growth here, a measly 0.2% in some cases. But
0% in January.
0%
Which is so no growth, which is, I would take the view, I'm no economist, that I would say that if you've got zero growth, you're going backwards, aren't you?
Well, absolutely. And there was a retraction in the very sector, construction, that actually generates the growth. So that is the house building. That opens up the opportunities for new employees, for obviously an asset, a house to sell, to build, to sell, for somebody to live in. It's an aspirational opportunity that is not going to be forthcoming. So it's, it's desperate times. If you couple that with obviously the national insurance contributions, the increase in business rates, the increase in the national minimum wage, all these things hitting not the big employees, because they can, they will always protest obviously, but they can broadly take the hit. But we are a nation of shopkeepers. We are a nation of the medium and small-sized businesses and the entrepreneurs. They can't take that hit.
Well, I totally agree, and my heart will always go out to anyone at the bottom end of the economic ladder. But I will tell you that I've got viewers and listeners with a household income of 60, 70, 80, 100 grand. They're struggling too.
Yeah, well, everyone is, Of course, there'll be some people more impacted than others, but everybody is tightening their belts. And obviously, if you've got more of a disposable income, where you might be then spending a bit more, which sort of generates that growth in the economy, if they're spending less, then obviously that's a maybe slightly larger bit of the pie that isn't being sort of eaten up, compared to maybe those on the lower end of the income scale who also won't be spending, and they'll be tightening their belts even more.
Well, yeah, it's a bit like SMEs within the economy. The middle class of any society are always the goose that laid the golden eggs. And if you poison that goose, you're going to be poor.
Yeah, and totally. And look, people will... But that's been this debate, till the end of time, whether people, particularly on the left, will say, well, those people earning megabucks, or, not even megabucks, actually, it could be, just that £50,000, £60,000, they should be in more tax. They should be the ones...
I'm old enough to remember. I remember when 50 grand was a lot of money. And it's not now. I don't think I will debate anybody to say that 50 grand with the level of taxation we've got. It's not just, I'm fascinated because I had a conversation when I mentioned it yesterday, but I've got EE. Are you familiar with EE?
The phone network?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I quite like them, actually. They're very friendly. Can I say that other networks are available, including Vodafone and O2?
Yeah, of which I'm one.
They're all good. But let me tell you that the lady at EE was telling me how hard she's struggling at the moment. I don't know how I got onto that, by the way, because we'd sorted out my SIM and my roaming. She said, do you like to roam? I said, I'm a roamer. She said, you need some help with that. Go and see your GP. I roam a couple of times a day, and it said there's a cream for that. But no, the bottom line... What's interesting about her, she's not making big bucks in a call centre for EE, right? They look after the staff, but it's not big bucks. And she talked about taxes going up. It's the first time in my lifetime that I've heard somebody that's not well paid talking about tax, because normally the political debate around tax is the sort of aspirational middle and upper class. And now it's ordinary people that are talking about tax. I think that's a change.
Yeah, totally. And it's those people who, as you say, might just be in the middle. It's those jams, as Theresa May put them, those that are just about managing, the people who are in that middle income, but therefore get dragged sometimes into the higher income tax bracket when governments try to change those thresholds. Those are the people that are now actually saying, well, look, I might as well just jack this in and claim benefits. If the state is going to pay more than what I can earn by doing 2 or 3 jobs, when I can see my neighbours, just living off, the state, or people that are coming in on small boats that get the hotels, that get everything, the free dental care, the health checks, that's not fair. But there are people that are literally now at break-it point thinking, well, why bother? What is the, when people wake up in the morning now, what is the point?
And life, everything is about incentives.
Yeah.
And if the incentive is not to work hard and save and pay your taxes, then that's the beginning of the end for a successful society.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. People should have purpose, and people should want to have purpose. But if you don't have an economy that gives you that opportunity, or that, aspiration or inspiration to go up and do what you want to do and what you want to achieve, and make that viable for you, all the while allowing you to keep the pound in your pocket and have, as less regulation as possible to enable you to just have a free and fair and happy and successful life. When all the burdens come into play, whether it's regulation and taxes on top of it, it makes life very difficult. And people wonder then why people up sticks and go to Dubai, for example, that has a much more generous and competitive tax system, but also, tougher measures on crime, for example. It seems to be, I know it's suffering a bit now, obviously, given
but out with their own control. That's not a failure, is it, of the leadership of the Emirates, that bombs are raining on them from Iran. But what they have got on top of, as you said, is public order and a coherent, successful economy.
Yeah. And the weather's not too bad too, I've heard. But but you're right. That's a society that we should be. I thought that we want here in the UK.
You can leave your mobile phone on mobile phone on a park bench, and 2 hours later you come back and it's still there.
Yeah.
That wouldn't happen in a month of Sundays in this country. And the other issue is, so we've got headlines. This is from the Sunday Mirror, and this has clearly come from Number 10, because this is client journalism on behalf of the Sunday Mirror. Iran war exclusive. We will fight to keep bills down. Labour vows to help as panic hits the pumps. My concern is it will be targeted to those at the very bottom end of the economic ladder. That's fine. It's people on benefits. But as I've said previously, people that work hard and have a decent household income probably won't get the support.
Yeah, exactly. And, I think I've read somewhere else that the other way to deal with this oil situation that obviously we're seeing in Iran, if we don't get the oil reserves that obviously coming through the Straits of Hormuz, is to plether the land with solar panels. And that is going to generate the energy, is it? That's Ed Miliband's view for you. I think what we should be probably doing is rather more getting back to fracking, where you can actually frack and extract oil and shale gas. And well, that's what the hell.
Are you fracking mad?
That's what the energy secretary.
What the frack has got into you this morning?
You can drill in the North Sea oil. Where those licences was cancelled under this government. I think even Tony Blair said we should bring those back to generate economic growth in, Aberdeen, for example. That's what it was famous for. That's where people, were very highly paid.
And the jobs are going now. Thousands of jobs in Aberdeen. It's devastating for the people in that region. The other issue you've got is with net zero, when you're pouring concrete into these oil facilities, these oil wells, then they're not coming back. This is infrastructure and this is, I think, a slight weakness in the reform offer. I appreciate what they're saying about net stupid zero, but they can't drill baby drill overnight. This will be years in the making.
Yeah, no, totally. And so I think you're absolutely right. We've got to find that. Well, it's a transition phase, isn't it? It's getting ourselves off the.
We'll take 5 years to reverse Ed Miliband's policies when the next government gets in, I fear.
Yes, because you're absolutely right, because all the damage that seems to be done now. And it's the same issue that we had with nuclear. It was Nick Clegg that famously, there's a video out there from him, I think in 2010, to say, well, nuclear will, never get, it's pointless, you never come on stream, so there's no point sort of doing anything about it. We've got to look at all these other alternatives. Well, 20 years later, when we should be using nuclear as part of that energy infrastructure that we have in this country, and we're behind on it. So, we need to, get back to doing what we can do to make ourselves self-sufficient and not relying on states like, you guessed it, Iran.
Most definitely. This from Roger in Wales, who says, good morning, Mark. Good morning, Charlie. With Starmer sucking up to the Muslim and illegal immigrants, are we sure he hasn't converted to Islam? Well, I think that'll be his next step, won't it? Let's be honest. This from Tony. Good morning, Mark. Slippery, slimy, duplicitous Starmer not only has a yellow streak running down his back, it also runs across. Never have we had a prime minister that's so hated by the British people. It's so tricky, isn't it, Tony? Because he is detested, and yet his replacement will likely be even worse. And this from Gary, proving my point that people are not talking about Peter Mandelson down the pub, they're talking about the cost of living. Gary says, on the subject of the cost of living, my wife, my missus, went shopping on Friday. She spent £150 to feed the three of us for 1 week. She would normally spend £200 a month, as she's always been good shopping for bargains. Utterly ridiculous. Of course, briefly, that's the other thing, Charlie. Inflation is the tax on everyone that no one talks about.
Exactly. And that's why there's always been this target by the Bank of England to keep it down to 2%. So actually, inflation doesn't run any higher, because that, as you say, will be the additional cost on everything, whether it's our food bills, whether it's energy bills, whether it's water bill, everything. If inflation is up, that is a cost on ordinary Brits. But as you've already said before, those people that will be hit hardest are those at the lower end of the income scale.
Most definitely. Well, Starmer's in trouble. He won't survive the summer, in my personal view. But will his replacement bring back free movement with the EU? 6:37. This is Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast. Mark Dolan with you until 10 a.m. in a Talk Breakfast exclusive. The scandal of mass immigration in Spain, a warning to the world. We'll be speaking to an activist live in Spain at 8:30. I promise you, you won't want to miss it. With me in the studio, reacting to the big stories of the day, I'm delighted to welcome political commentator Charlie Rowley. Charlie, so many messages coming in. Pete says, good morning, boys. Old Feathers, the penguin, looks identical to Starmer. Dead behind the eyes, nothing there. This man has to call an election, but his arrogance won't allow it. This from Howard. Good morning, Mark, and good morning, Charlie. You can't just jack it in and go on benefits. If you walk out of your job, you've made yourself intentionally unemployed and won't get any money for 6 months. No housing benefit, no council tax benefit, no universal credit, zero, nothing. That's the issue. Always follow the incentives, Charlie.
Well, yes, but I mean, the only counter to that is when you see and hear, I think it's about 3,000 people a day are going on the welfare bill, citing mental health or anxiety and things like that. That is why the benefits bill is ballooning. That is why so many people are now claiming, and that's why unemployment is up, and that's why youth unemployment is up. This is, we should be a country that's looking to the future, giving opportunities to young people. They are the people that should be coming forward with they're brighter and better than their previous generation and peers, but, they're being left behind, and I think that's a really sad thing.
And there are two problems. You don't want young people not getting in the work habits and becoming accustomed to sitting at home and gaming and watching Netflix and not being productive. It could become a habit. I mean, some of this is potentially a legacy from COVID. There's a big economic impact too, but there's potentially a political danger too, because if you've got a generation of young people that can't get on the housing ladder, can't even get a job, don't have skin in the game, don't have a stake in the economy, then I suspect that politically they're going to choose a radical left-wing populist movement, because you're not going to vote Tory or Reform if you're a lazy ne'er-do-well, are you?
Absolutely. And look, the failure in our politics at the minute. And I agree with, Kemi, actually, when she says that our politics is broken. I do actually believe that, we are broken as a society in general. I know she said, actually, she doesn't think the country's broken because she wants to sort of talk it up. And, she's young as well and, is hopeful and optimistic. And I don't disagree with that, but I genuinely feel the state of the current situation of the country is that we are broken. And so, people will want to look to their political leaders to provide the answers. And when, the Tories had all of their shenanigans in the past, chopping and changing their leader, Partygate and all the rest of it, Liz Truss, 49-day tenure, it was the fault of the Tories, really, as to why Labour got in. And now we're seeing a completely vacuous number 10 who's, a Prime Minister who's had 5 years, or had 5 years, as leader of the opposition to actually come up with a plan to know what he actually wants to do with this country. Didn't have any of that at all, as is now we're seeing, because anything that he kind of decides he wants to do, he'll U-turn momentarily. The failure of the Tories got the Labour government in. Now that this Labour government are even worse, in my view, and hopelessly failing, people are looking again for alternatives. And that's why Nigel Farage is leading in the polls in reform. But if you are off the left, if you've got to look for an alternative, and that's why we're seeing the rise of Zach Polanski and the interesting Greens.
Well, yes, if you're a young person and you don't have a job and you can't get on the housing ladder and perhaps there's no prospect of any great career, you're going to shift leftwards, aren't you? You're going to be attracted to a party that says, all those people with houses, that's unfair. You haven't got one of those, have you? So, we'll have a more redistributive policy.
It's the politics of envy. Because you're absolutely right.
But who could blame a young kid with no skin in the game, no stake in the economy for voting that way?
Well, you
there's no incentive.
You're absolutely right. You can't blame that young voter. But what you can do, and that's why we need to have a serious conversation about it, because you've got to blame the politicians, and you've got to make sure that politicians are being straight with the British people, what they're promising, and pointing out to young people, look, they will promise you the world. The Greens will tell you all that you want to hear. They will look after you, they'll give you all the money that's growing from their trees that they're planting in their back garden. If you're dare I say it, if you're a young woman, and you want to go up a cup in your bra size, Zach Polanski is your man.
Well, yeah. But do you think he can do the same with men, by the way?
Well, yes. I mean,
can he inflate our assets?
Well, I've been going to the
gym.
I've heard
not that you need it.
I can go to the gym day after day, and my pecs won't see any kind of growth. But it's funny, obviously, because this is the state that we've got to. But it's also alarming. This guy should be a joke because of all the things that he's promised in the past and the things that he stands for today. But he's a senior now party political leader in the UK. People are looking to him and will be voting.
He's a symptom of the failure of the establishment.
Yeah.
And arguably so is Mr. Farage, although I do think that Zach Polanski is far more radical than Farage is in relative terms on the left versus the right. It's very interesting, is it? Can you understand and see why my viewers and listeners, having had years of falling living standards, crime, ridiculous energy policies which make you think twice about switching off on the heater in the evening, wokery in our public institutions, the NHS calling pregnant women birthing humans, various sort of incredibly self-destructive policies over many years, open borders being perhaps the most egregious example. Can you understand why the public want to get rid of the whole establishment? And that's why a lot of people, whilst they might admire Kemi, are not listening to the Conservatives.
Yeah, I do. No, and
because the Tories are an establishment party, and that's the problem.
Yeah, totally. And look, and they were in. You can't. And this is the challenge that Kemi faces. You can't run away from the charge. However much you claim that you've changed, and how much you've listened, and however Kemi might talk absolute sense. And she may have all the policies, the right policies for the future, like getting rid of stamp duty to help younger people. That is a practical help to help people with getting on the housing ladder, where obviously you don't have to pay stamp duty, so you've got a reduction in what you actually got to pay for us. But that's very different to saying, here we go, we're going to give you a free house if you're the Greens. One is obviously more appealing than the other, but one is totally unrealistic compared to the practical policy. But you're right, you can't run away from the charge of, well, sorry, you had 14 years, and whilst you were infighting about Brexit as a political party, which the Tories were, when you were obviously dealing with a pandemic, which I'm obviously, I was there at the time, so of course I'm going to be slightly more sympathetic in terms of the decision making, because it was something that no one's ever had to deal with before. And all the while that you were sort of changing as a Tory party, all the way from David Cameron, all of this going on, and in the background, whilst there was maybe an attempt to have more PR politics, all of these things that actually are now coming home to roost, the government took its eye off the ball on. So we now have a civil service, for example, that is more interested in having conversations, certainly under this government, about international human rights, and they're not doers. There is nobody in the... I don't believe over the last decade that we really have people in, for example, the Department for Education that are saying, right, OK, I'm not really interested in having another meeting about whether this should be on the curriculum or that should be on the curriculum.
Yeah.
How do we actually get more teachers in the classroom? How do we actually make sure educational standards are up? Same with the NHS. How do we actually stop talking about, pontificating about the backlog, or, recruiting this person or that person, or what kind of diagnostic equipment? Just get the backlog busted, make sure that actually patients are getting the service. But you need people that are just doers, not thinkers and just chatterbox.
This is why people are attracted to Nigel Farage's insurgent political movement, is because I think what the public feel is needed and what they want, what they crave, is radical change. And I think that the problem the Tories have, there's a perception that, yes, they might have learnt their lessons, but what they want to do is tweak what exists. And the attraction of reform is that they'll just tear it down and start again. And that's a view that I'm beginning to warm to, because I think the issue we've got in our public institutions is very cultural. Just the default nature of the welfare state, whereby people fall into benefits very easily. And the definition of ill health has now expanded so massively as to be financially ruinous, because you could have stress or so-called ADHD and you'll be on full benefits at home. So, the country, to survive, I think, needs really radical change, and it's going to have to be someone that's got the stomach and the mandate for it. And at the moment, I don't see that as Kemi.
Yeah, and I think, look, the appeal to Nigel Farage is not only is he a good communicator, which he obviously very much is. I've noticed that he's doing some rallies recently. He's been doing his local election tour and bringing in huge crowds, but just standing in front of however many people that decide to turn up and can just talk. And, part of his attraction, I think, or part of the appeal to him, is that he genuinely, I believe, is someone who doesn't need to be here, actually. He doesn't need to do what he's doing. And he's not just saying what he thinks the country might want to hear. He actually believes in it. And, he will have all the mud thrown at him. He's had that his whole political life. But I think there is just something about him which is authentic. Whether you love him or absolutely loathe him, there is an authenticity about Nigel that says, right, this is the problem and we're actually going to fix it. Whereas, as you say with Kemi, younger, yes, obviously tainted because she was in the cabinet previously under successive Conservative governments, not really going to get a look in, I don't think, because the public don't want to go back to the Tories. They're not listening to the Tories. A lot of time, I think a bit more time will have to pass.
Cliff in Berkshire, good morning, boys. COVID, I suspect, made many people think how expensive it is to work. By the time you take into account the cost of going to work, transport is expensive to use, it's getting dearer to run a car. Young people no longer have part-time jobs such as paper rounds, sweeping up in the barbers, shop work, etc., because it's become almost too much hassle for an employer to employ kids. Cliff, you're right about that. Phil says, if I were young again, and I'm glad I'm not, what is the incentive to work hard, get a mortgage, have children? Let's face it, who would want to bring a child into this world? When you can break into this country in the next 4 years and be given a brand new house, we are committing national suicide. Nick says, good morning, chaps. Yes, Starmer's successor will undoubtedly strive to reintroduce free movement from the EU, but this time all we'll get is the dross, as no ambitious, self-respecting EU citizen would even consider migrating to what the UK has become under this corrupt shower of Fabians. Here's a voice note on whether the next Labour leader will take us back into the EU. This is Damon.
Morning, Mark. Damon from Wigan. We cannot afford to go back into the customs union, and we cannot afford to have freedom of movement again. This country just cannot afford this. It's ridiculous. Starmer is an out-and-out traitor, and all he wants to do is to ruin Britain, and he is ruining Britain beyond repair, and he needs to go. I said this to you yesterday. I don't know what Starmer is up to, but I do think that Labour is doing this deliberately. And, may I say, it's also nice to see the beautiful Charlie Rowley this morning. Thank you.
Well, there you go. A very nice compliment for Charlie. He's a fine figure of a man. I totally agree, Damon. Thank you for your common sense. And you know what? Call me every day and tell me what you're concerned about, Damon, because that's the purpose of this network and of this show, is to represent your concerns. And it's not about Peter Mandelson and Epstein stuff, right? It is about how hard it is to get through life on a day-to-day basis for a country that's losing its national identity, which doesn't have borders anymore, which doesn't have proper policing. Change is coming. Bring popcorn. More to come. It is 6:52. This is Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Great point at 6:54 on Talk Breakfast from Michael, who says, good morning, boys. The public sector today exists for the convenience of the staff and does not provide for patients, victims, pupils and the vulnerable. Here's a voice note from Jay, who is genuinely not happy with this current government.
Good morning. This country needs to get together, do something like the majority not pay council tax. Stand together, try to overthrow this absolute corrupt, disgusting Labour government. If we all do it, all stick together, or the majority of us, there is hope. But each day I feel that it's fading. I'm absolutely sick of this government, and I honestly believe it's done deliberately to destroy this country. Anyway, enjoy listening to your show. Have a good one, people.
Jay, thank you for that. And Jay speaks for so many people. Ivor is in Hampshire. Ivor, do you agree with Jay? He's had enough. He's thinking maybe we stop paying our council tax so that this government will actually acknowledge the public anger about their policies?
Yeah, he is right, Mark. It's pretty obvious that they're out to destroy everything that we got. They're just dreadful.
Ivor, why would this government seek to damage Britain so egregiously? Because I've had lots of callers and listeners saying to me that this feels like it's on purpose. Why would they?
Well, I think they're working for the enemy. I think they're working for not the West, but working for the East. I mean, I think Starmer and his gang, really, they're traitors because, to define a traitor as someone that betrays the promises that they make to the general public when they're in his position. I mean, on July the 3rd, 2024, he stood up and said we would not rejoin the EU, the customs union, or the single market in his lifetime. He said that.
Yeah.
And then he said it again on December the 25th, on December the 5th, 2025. He would not be taking us back in. He's lied and he's betrayed us. And that really should be enough to have him arrested and charged with treason.
And, misconduct in a public office or something. Ivor, stay with me if you can. It's a word I'm hearing a lot from my audience, Charlie, is the word traitor in regard to Starmer. Now, it's strong language, and Number 10 would deny that. They'd say that the Prime Minister is a great patriot, fixing the problems created by the Conservatives after 14 years in power. A strong mandate to save the country. But there's a perception that our Prime Minister is a traitor and that he's working against the national interest of this country.
Well, there's certainly an element of Eastern politics within this government. If you just take two recent examples of getting rid of jury trials, for example, something that has been the bedrock of our judicial system here, where you're tried by your peers, and also trying to cancel local elections. There's no democracy, trying to cancel democracy. Getting locked up for tweets, or the police coming to knock on your door because you've said some hurty words in a WhatsApp
nervously
group.
Telling British Muslims in Westminster Hall that we didn't participate in the initial action against Iran.
Yeah, exactly.
Pandering to one community.
It's all there. So, you can't help but this all clocks up. And this is what the public see. And this is what they feel.
What about Jay's idea and Ivor's that this is on purpose? Where do you stand on that? Is that a conspiracy theory?
Do you know what? I have absolutely no idea, and it's not often that I would say that. I mean, I get paid to turn up and have ideas.
No, I think it's an honest answer.
But I think I can't put my finger on what on earth this government is trying to achieve. Why is it doing the things that it does? Because then it also ends up U-turning all the time.
Ivor, I've got a few seconds. You get the last word, big man.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I'm still here, yeah.
So what do you think? I mean, how's this going to play out? Starmer will be gone by the summer, won't he?
Well, he will be, but like we're saying, any of the other lot that's coming behind him will be a damn sight worse.
Ivor, let me tell you that you talk sense and you're a true patriot, and I love having you on the show. Call me again soon, big man. More of your calls in the front pages to come next.
the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
$7.02. Top of the morning, I'm Mark Dolan. This is Talk Breakfast. Happy Sunday, one and all. The President of the United States claims the new Supreme Leader of Iran may well be dead. But has Donald Trump bitten off more than he can chew in the Middle East? And will we all pay the price? With misery for Brits as energy prices spiral and the cost at the pumps heads further north, can the Chancellor Rachel Reeves even afford to help us with our energy bills? Meanwhile, with Westminster insiders predicting the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, will be gone by the summer, will his replacement bring back free movement in an effort to rekindle our relationship with the EU? Meanwhile, the scandal of BP and Shell making £5 billion since the war in Iran began. And in a Talk Breakfast exclusive, anger in Spain as mass immigration impacts society and the economy. They've just granted citizenship to 500,000 illegal immigrants under their socialist Prime Minister. We've got the inside story. We'll be heading to Spain at 8:30 for a Talk Breakfast exclusive. But I can't do it without you. My phone number is 0344 499 1000. What do you think about this? Should we go back into the EU? Should we have free movement? Is it time to return to the bosom of Brussels? Text the word TALK in your message to 87222. Or you can leave us a voice note. It's all about your opinions. Delighted to say you can hear us on DAB+, in-app and online, but you can watch us on TV as well. The brilliant Davis is directing our TV output. Just head to YouTube, search Talking Up We Pop. Jodie is driving the show today. She's our executive producer. Delighted to have her. What an upgrade. Dave, the engineer, pressing the buttons and taking your calls. The lovely Tommy. It's all happening. It's the dream team, as the saying goes. Let's talk. There you go. Let me plug myself in. Let me tell you that I've been working in broadcasting now for 30 years, and I can tell you that everyone in showbiz, they're so fake. All these people on TV and radio, they pretend to be all lovely. It's not real. They are such phonies. They're such frauds. The magic of Talk is it's real and it's live, and I've had a problem with my earpiece. The microphone fell off. That is the magic. That is the special sauce of this network, because we are ourselves, we're real. And that's why it's a great listen, but it's an even better watch on YouTube. And you'll watch it when I drop things in the studio and glasses go flying, all the rest of it. Shall we get to the front pages? Mail on Sunday as pressure mounts on the PM over damaging decision to appoint former minister as US ambassador. The paper can reveal Epstein's illicit drugs and Botox for Peter Mandelson. So it seems that the disgraced paedophile financier Jeffrey Epstein was paying for plastic surgery and illegal drugs to be consumed by Peter Mandelson. This is a guy that the Prime Minister thought was an appropriate person to have the biggest job in British diplomacy, UK ambassador to the United States. Sunday Mirror. Iran war exclusive. We will fight to keep bills down. Labour vows to help as panic hits the pumps. Sun on Sunday. Disgraced actor shock. TV pedo Alford dead in jail. Daily Star. Sunday. TV legend calls in cops. Gladiator jet my stalker nightmare. Sunday Express. Fresh spike in migrants applying to be EU citizens. Sunday Telegraph, Starmer may send drones to the Gulf, and Britain to have open EU border if Labour rebels win. Let's get reaction to all of these stories from the broadcaster and former political advisor Charlie Rowley and Linda Dewberley, one of the most experienced journalists and TV broadcasters in the country. Good morning, Linda.
Good morning, Mark.
Plenty to go at today. What do you make of these noises around our relationship with the EU? A future Labour leader, potentially an incoming new Prime Minister later in the year, could seek a closer set of ties with the EU. That might involve a customs union. Number 10 insiders are saying, well, if you want a customs union, you're going to have to accept free movement.
Yeah, that may come to pass. I think that most people agree now, even Labour MPs that I've spoken to, that Sir Keir Starmer's tenure at number 10 is very limited. Things have been extremely rough for him over the last few weeks, and we can expect far worse in the May elections. I doubt that anyone I've spoken to believes that he can exist beyond the autumn of this year.
Wow.
But then where does that leave us with who comes in?
Most definitely. And of course, a new leader would have to offer alternative policies, wouldn't they? It couldn't just be continuity Starmer. If you want to win a leadership election, especially with that quite left-wing backbench constituency that need to be having some red meat thrown in their direction, Linda, what are they going to be talking about? They're going to talk about wealth taxes, doubling down on net zero, possibly the reversal of Shabana Mahmood's immigration policies, and closer ties with the EU. That is going to be the likely platform of Starmer's replacement, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you say it couldn't just be continuity, the fact of the matter is we haven't had any continuity, because as Charlie has pointed out earlier in this programme, the fact is no one can understand why there have been so many U-turns. I just want to offer one line of observation there. I believe there are so many U-turns because there was no vision outlined at the outset.
Yeah.
Because Keir Starmer did not have a vision, therefore he could not have a strategy. And the fact is, you have to have a plan to start with, and I don't think he had one. Now, to carry on with the rest of your question, I think that things are going to get very rocky, and they will veer to the left, I believe. There's lots of speculation about Angela Rayner, but she'd have to clear up her tax issues first. She'd have to pay the outstanding tax, and she can't pay that until it's been demanded of her by HMRC, as I understand it technically. So there is an issue there with who might take over. But you're exactly right. Anyone who takes over has to appeal to the left wing of the party and the backbenchers. And that's a really big problem, because as we go forward into this war, we can see that we need more in defence spending. You know, we really need to try and get it to 3% of GDP, maybe even 3.5%.
Yes.
Sound like a huge jump from 2.5, but it's absolutely massive. And the problem with that is you will not be able to do it without cutting back on welfare. And we've seen that Sir Keir Starmer has failed in his endeavour to do that. And we are now watching welfare spending completely rushing out of all control. And it's causing a massive and unrelenting problem here.
Indeed. Charlie Rowley is with us in the studio as well. You've advised some very senior politicians in the past, including Michael Gove, the Govester. Can I ask you, Charlie, what do you think will be the offer of a future candidate to be Prime Minister of this country, Labour leader? Will they double down on net zero? Will it be about wealth taxes? And will it be about a closer partnership with the EU?
I think all of those things. And I think Linda's, absolutely right. It has to be someone that can appeal to the left of the party, because that is predominantly the membership. Just as in the Tory party, you tend to have, the more centre-right candidate or right candidate wing of the party than you would a centrist or a One Nation type leading the party. So that's just how it sort of works. And I can't help but keep coming back to the name Ed Miliband. And I think your viewers and listeners will probably know that too, which is why they always say, however, with the obvious caveat, however bad Starmer is, it could be worse. And I do think people infer in that way that that's Ed Miliband, because he could actually be someone. If I was advising Ed Miliband, I'd say that you've got this, because you are probably the only one that can, given your cabinet role as Energy Secretary, as someone that is very pro, net zero and doing all the lovely green things that you're doing. That is a direct appeal to Labour members that might be drifting off to the Greens. He's also done the job before where he could legitimately say, at a moment where the public aren't particularly supportive of intervention in the Middle East on a defence basis, he led the vote as leader of the opposition previously against David Cameron for intervention in Syria. He's the one that's learned lessons from the past. And obviously he's been a former special advisor himself in the Treasury, so he knows about the economy, he knows about the future for green issues that appeals to young people, the membership of the party, and he can claim to be a leading light in the Labour Party when it comes to defence. That ticks a lot of boxes, and plus the experience of having done the job as leader of the opposition before, senior politician for the Labour Party, that can appeal. When you're desperate.
Well, that is an absolute political bombshell from Charlie Rowley at 13 minutes past 7 on a Sunday morning, and I've not even had my coffee yet. Linda, do my viewers and listeners, Linda, need to get their heads around the possibility of Prime Minister Ed Miliband?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. Charlie's made a very good point there. And the big thing there is that he may well have learned from the past. Because that's what he needs to do. He certainly needs to overcome the perceptions of his image in the past, and he may well have done that. I think what's really interesting is his green credentials, which in some areas are rubbish, actually are fully burnished up with younger members of the population. And sometimes when we look at recent events, for example, in Gorton and Denton, we talk about the Muslim vote, and we do it at the expense of other things. Now, in that election, in that part of the constituency that got Hannah Spencer into power, it was the Muslim vote, but it was also the younger vote, because in that constituency, that part of the constituency, there were many, many undergraduates, and they voted Green. And I really don't think that in the forthcoming, in an upcoming general election, unless you understand how to appeal to younger voters, I don't think you can get any position of power. I think many people don't think there'll be an overall majority for any party, but if you want to get the younger vote, and it's an all-consuming issue with the Conservative Party, who I was told at a Conservative event with the Shadow Chancellor recently, that the average age of the voter in the last election was 63. I'll say that again, 63.
Wow.
Even my basic arithmetic would take me to the fact that in the next election, they'll be pushing 70. That's the average age. You absolutely need to sort out some kind of attraction with the younger voter. And actually, if you had to choose between the two of Angela Rayner and Ed Miliband, where that's concerned, you'd probably go for Ed Miliband.
Well, I totally agree that could be the mood music, Linda and Charlie. Jan has messaged the show. Good morning, folks. I believe there needs to be a law or something that makes manifestos a legal document so governments cannot do anything that isn't in there, which changes the norms and traditions of this country. I'm particularly thinking of the Chagos deal and banning jury trials. Jan, what a great message. You can add to that digital ID. Gary in Bridgewater. Good morning, guys. If it's not treason, the ever-lying Starmer needs to stand up and without the flowery BS or using a million words to say sweet FA in his usual style, he needs to explain his actions and his plans going forward. We should then have a referendum on his plans. What an interesting thought on that. And this from Jane. Good morning, Mark. Can you ask Charlie? She says, I love you. But Jane says, do the politicians ever get to realise how much they're disliked? Or are they so thick-skinned they don't care? And why, if the public voted them in, can't they get them out? What do you think? Do the politicians have a thick skin?
They do, but I think you've got to, because, apart from, doing the job, which is difficult, you do get a lot of, you're not popular. I think politicians are less popular than estate agents. You've got to be thick-skinned with the amount of abuse that you do get on email and online and all the rest of it. But you're absolutely right. There is a tipping point between actually being resilient and thick-skinned, but knowing the arguments and knowing the facts and challenging the civil service as well as everyone else to get to a right decision that's going to benefit the country is one thing, but being in your bunker all day long and not understanding what you're doing, but just going along with it because an official has put this piece of paper in front of you and says, Minister, please just sign this bit of paper, or this is the right thing to do, and you're led by them, as it were. There's a fine line there.
Most definitely. I mean, sorry, finish your point.
Well, no, I was just I was going to hijack the whole thing and come back to what Linda was saying, because she's got my juices flowing about the young vote, because I think it's not just about the young vote. Young people will have a real choice at the next election because they're so angry, and it is the anger of I've got no hope or opportunity, and so they will have a choice to either go down the Green Party route as saying, well, they're promising me the world, oh, that's just what I want, or they could be angry in a sense of playing into Nigel Farage's party, which we don't have the opportunities because this guy who was on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, he looks like, or feels like, my granddad or uncle or whatever, but he's the one telling me that actually the problems of our country stem from either immigration, lack of growth, the two-party system failing. So there is a binary choice exactly between two new parties, which I think want to not just appeal to young people, but everyone else.
By the way, what a fun Uncle Nigel Farage would be. So I think Uncle Nigel, Linda, would let you have a cigarette in the garden, wouldn't he?
Yeah, the thing about younger people now is they don't do that much smoking and they don't do that much drinking.
No, they've got very boring. I mean, and interestingly,
I grew up in Fleet Street in the 1980s, and I can tell you now that we lived in my paper, the Daily Mail, lived in the Harrow, the Mirror lived in the Stab in the Back, the Express lived in the Popinjay. We lived in the pub and we had ashtrays on our desks. Now, young people now are much more likely to be having a drink of green matcha tea and doing their salutations to the sun every morning. Well, I've got three of them. I've got a millennial and two Gen Zs, so I know exactly what they do. But to speak to Charlie's point, I think it is absolutely imperative that people start to political parties start to try and mobilise the younger vote. In all seriousness, things are tough, very tough for this generation. If you look in London, when I got my first flat or my second flat, you had a multiple of your earnings, which might have been 3 or 4 times your earnings. It's now 8 or 9 times your earnings in London. They are shackled with student debt in a totally unfair situation. And they have a degree of hopelessness about them. And I have said to my own children, look, vote, get off your bottoms and vote. And they'll say to me, well, I think I can achieve what one child on Mothering Sunday, I think I can say this, I'm very proud of. And he is very responsible. He's an economist. He's civically very responsible. And I said, it's all well and good having all these cycle campaigns and green campaigns, but you have to exercise your right to vote. It will never be more important for your age group in particular than in this election. Nigel Farage, who I like and is a lot of fun. I think you're quite right. You can have a fag out in the backyard. He won't have a problem with any of this. But that's not fundamentally what's going to make, in all seriousness, young people happy.
Briefly, Linda, I'm worried about the future of the country because I'm just thinking that if you've got a generation of young people that aren't used to work, have no prospect of a great, well-paying career, no hope of getting on the housing ladder, therefore no stake in the economy, does that mean that the political future of this country is going to be radical left and that populists like Zelensky will dominate the scene rather than Farage?
Well, I think that Zach Polanski is not just going to be, but is a consequential politician. So certainly younger people might be looking in that direction, but separate out those subjects. I mean, the fact of the matter is that young people, some young people, we can call them NEETs, those people not in education, training or employment, have got a hard time. We have to find a way of giving them a living, because it's not just the money, it's the self-respect, it's the position in the society, and it's hope. That they feel a problem at the moment because they've lost hope. And frankly, they're looking at a government now led by Sir Keir Starmer, where values are not, where there are no values on show other than a deplorable relationship with Peter Mandelson, which that's a very bad example for how you should behave in life.
Fascinating. Well, look, let me tell you that Charlie Rowley is going to exit the studio. Charlie, it's been brilliant to have you on the show this morning, and I'm really glad we got your juices going.
Well, that's all down to Linda.
Great news. down to Linda and a trip that you made to the GP this Wednesday, and I'm glad it went so well. Come back and see us soon. We really appreciate your trenchant views and your wise counsel. The brilliant Linda Jubilee, one of the most experienced journalists and broadcasters in the country, is going to stay with us. And let's just play out a couple of very interesting voice notes. This is Anna. Take a listen to this.
Good morning, Mark. Anna. So here's Starmer's plan. They're demoralising the country. They're disempowering us by silencing us, by making us frightened to speak. They made examples of Lucy Connolly. They are demonising the white working class man. Then they're actually sending our army away. People that would protect us, because the police won't. The police are against us. They are going to force civil unrest. Why? They're flooding our areas with illegals and third world immigrants, Islamics. Except Starmer, they won't go red, they'll go green. Why do they want to force civil unrest, Mark? Because then they can force civil war, then they can declare a state of emergency, so they can stop elections. Starmer is a traitor. Mandelson was just a puppet. Not Trump, not Epstein, not all your conspiracy theories. He was a puppet of Starmer. Thanks, Mark. Bye-bye.
Anna, a very powerful voice note. The Prime Minister would deny those allegations, but what do you think? Is Keir Starmer a traitor to this country? 7:24, this is Talk Breakfast.
When conflict breaks out anywhere in the world, it has consequences here at home. Talk War is your definitive national security briefing. From the conflict in Ukraine to the tensions in Gaza and the latest escalation with Iran, this is where you'll find comprehensive comment and expert analysis with multiple updates throughout the day. The Talk War podcast from Talk, available on the Talk app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
7:27, Talk Breakfast. Is Sir Keir Starmer a traitor to this country? 0344 499 1000. Here's a voice note from Tristan.
Morning, Mark. Tristan in Bedford. I hate to say it, I'm going to be echoing what a lot of the callers and voice notes have been. Not only is the government hated, but it seems like it's treachery. Well, it's sabotage, and they do it because they hate the country. Just look at Lord Hermer, for example. Look at the people he's actually defended. Look at every policy is against this country. Every policy is against this country. If any other Prime Minister had done what Keir Starmer has done, they would have been kicked out and the media would have turned on them. The entire media would have turned on them. But we don't have that. We have a media class for this government, but it's nothing but sabotage and hatred of this country and its people as well. Great show.
Wow, sabotage and hatred of this country. How about this from Judy?
Hello, it's Judy from Altofts, West Yorkshire. I think everything this government does is deliberate. I really do. They are Marxists. But the one way you destroy a country is from the inside. When everything goes to cocks and we're all rioting in the streets, they'll bring in draconian laws. They rule everything from what we eat. We'll all have to have ID cards, and we'll be closer to the EU. Oh, we'll definitely go back because it'll be for our own good. And I also think that when Starmer and Labour realise they're not going to win next general election, they'll go scorched earth. They will borrow that much money to throw at people, especially them on benefits, that anybody else that comes in after them will need, 20 years to get this country stable. That's what I think will happen. Thank you.
Judy, thank you for your no-nonsense voice note. Linda Jubilee is with me, a brilliant journalist and broadcaster, worked for some of the biggest papers in the country and the early days of Sky News when it was watchable. And Linda, what is your reaction there to what Tristan has had to say, that he feels that the Prime Minister is working against the interests of the country, and Judy suggesting that what you'll get in the next couple of years is a scorched earth policy in anticipation of a Farage-led government. Is that wide of the mark? Is that an overstatement, or is there some truth to it?
No, I think that's what could happen. I think that this scorched earth policy could easily happen. It doesn't matter whether Starmer's in charge or not. I think that could happen for a Labour government because, frankly, their unwillingness to cut the benefit bill, and I agree with benefits. For people who really need them, they are quite literally a lifesaver. But the fact of the matter is we can't be spending hundreds of billions of pounds on benefits when we have to be spending money on the defence of the realm. It's just ridiculous. We need to get right on top of that situation. And I mean, look, any housewife can tell you this. Well, I'll probably get shot down for saying that. Any house husband as well can tell. Anyone who manages their household finances can tell you this. If you do not have money coming in on enough scale, you cannot buy the things you want. So we've got a difficult situation here. We've got a really clear and present need for money to go into the exchequer. And we've got a population, an ageing population at one end, bookending by an awful lot of youngsters who cannot find work at the other, or cannot or do not find work at the other end. So it is absolutely obvious that the money the Labour Party needs to keep its backbenchers happy has to come from somewhere. So the caller was quite right in suggesting that might come from borrowing. It might come from someplace else in terms of rising taxes. But the fact of the matter is, it could easily be a scorched policy for the next government that comes in.
Speaking of scorched earth, Linda, what about the stories we're seeing in the papers today, including in the Telegraph, that a future Labour leader coming in towards the end of the summer to replace Starmer will seek to rekindle our relationship with the EU, rejoin the customs union, the price of which would be free movement?
Yeah, so the free movement thing is obviously not ideal, because at the moment we need to be strengthening our borders, not weakening them. So that's a very, very important point. But in military terms, we do need a better relationship with the EU. We may see this war in the Middle East if it doesn't get completely out of hand, it will certainly go on for a lot longer than we thought it would to start with. Now, President Trump may pull out at a certain point and say, sure, look, I've done what I can. I've set back the nuclear agenda for Iran by 20 years. But actually, it's time to go now. Over to you guys, because he keeps saying that now that he has annihilated much of the infrastructure, the military infrastructure of the country, it's now over to people in Iran to rise up. Now, I'm digressing a lot from your original question, but I want to raise one important point.
Connected, isn't it?
It is all connected. Everything we do these days is completely connected. And there is no real opposition in Iran, so no one's going to be rising up anytime soon without some help. And President Trump, we can see, is now asking for help from Europe in dealing with this situation, because he doesn't want to upset his MAGA base for any longer than he has to. So he's asked Europe for help, particularly the UK for help. And we're not going to be able to do this unless we are co-joined in some meaningful way militarily with the EU. That's all I will say on the subject. But as for free movement, no, I don't think that is a good idea at all. But things are heading in that direction.
Well, this is it. I mean, the country, whatever happens, if Starmer falls, we're going to shift leftwards, aren't we? That is the reality. What are the implications for my viewers and listeners if that happens, Linda?
Well, you know, as I said a little bit earlier on, we have to be thinking about more in terms of defense spending, because we're living now in a very dangerous world. And I don't think we're going to get that money, because I think the money is going to stick with the benefits system. And that is a problem for the defense of our country. So I definitely think we'll see that.
So what do you think? You anticipate if Starmer goes, we're going to be poorer and less well defended? That's basically, those are the headlines by the sounds of it.
Yeah, I definitely think we'll be less well defended. And I think we'll be poorer because, as we all know, socialists are great at spending other people's money. So how are we going to deal with the fact that we have very little economic momentum now? That was even downgraded over the last 10 days from where it should have been. And that's because of global circumstances. And actually, you know, Sir Keir Starmer has little to do with that. But nevertheless, facts are facts. We don't have the economic momentum we need in this country. So we are going to feel a lot poorer. That is the reality of the situation.
Linda, a privilege to have you on the show. Fantastic to see you on a Sunday morning. Thank you so much for making your time. The fantastic journalist and broadcaster, Linda Jubilee. She's also a communications consultant as well. A simple question at 7:35 on a Sunday morning. Is Sir Keir Starmer a traitor to this country? Your call's next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Nigel says, good morning, Mark. We need to be closing our borders, not strengthening them. We're on the verge of a very difficult world with a government that does not protect its native population. Stephen says, good morning, Mark. The EU needs the collapse of the UK to fulfil its goal of the borderless society. of Western civilization under one central government. So it must be destabilised so certain laws and restrictions can be brought in. This government is ramping up very similar plans here for all to see. Wake up, everyone. Our Parliament and Lords are traitors as well as our PM. Is the Prime Minister a traitor to this country? Vernon is in Staffordshire. Good morning, Vernon.
Morning, Mark.
Happy Sunday.
Excellent show.
Well, thank you very
Amazing.
much. What's happening today for you in Staffordshire? What are you up to?
Busy day ahead. Just been in the garden, gathering all the footballs for the children. We got a football game at 9:30 today. Pyramid Vipers. Watching my little boy, taking them apart.
Are you in with a chance of winning the game, do you think?
You're always in a chance. It's 9 versus 9. So, you know.
How old are the kids that are playing?
So Harry's 11. So yeah, it's cool.
It's a great thing for the young kids to be doing on a Sunday morning, isn't it? Playing football, right? A bit of resilience, a bit of fitness, a bit of time with their friends.
And it's a change for me, Mark. I've smashed it the last 9 years. And the reason I'm bringing you is just to give you a little bit of background on a wealth creator, an entrepreneur that's absolutely smashed it the last 9 years. And I'm now going to spend the next 3 years taking it steady.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. And Vernon, what do you make of the direction of travel? Tell me about the environment for entrepreneurs and whether it's worth working.
There's no point, Mark.
Wow.
There's absolutely no point. So, take it from me. I have a beautiful home in Staffordshire, paid for. I have a beautiful car in the garage, paid for. I have money in the bank. Not wealthy, comfortable. But 9 years I've done really well. And through no fault of my own, my business is stagnating. So year on year, we will make less money. And as a result of making less money, we have to reduce costs. So that means cutting back on staff, cutting back on marketing. The benefit for me, Mark, is that it gives me more time with my family.
But what it means is that your business, because of the economic climate created by Labour's policies, you're not incentivised to invest or to hire people.
I'm Mr. Outsource currently, Mark.
Wow.
I buy services in because I get a fixed cost. I don't know the cost to employ people because it changes by the minute. We've got a bean counter as the Chancellor that's achieved the square root of 0 in her life. And unfortunately, she's making business decisions that are having massive ramifications with my customers. And as a result of that, Mark, they're not spending. And as a result of that, I'm not hiring. I'm not buying a new car this year.
Yeah.
I'm not spending money on my beautiful property with builders. So the knock-on effect is enormous. But when you penalise business, it reacts, and it reacts by not employing people. That's why unemployment has gone up. That is why job availability is down. All of the metrics are down. You know what the saddest thing is, though, Mark, is that they're gaslighting and they're lying. They're saying immigration is down. Yes, it is. But the immigration that is arriving now is different to the immigration of 30 years ago. That's a fact. Wealth creators have left. And what's also incredibly sad, Mark, the joy of seeing people in Dubai and the UAE who've contributed massively to this country, and the pathetic people in this country that feel that the government has to provide free school meals. Nothing's free. We pay for it. The workers pay for it. There's nothing free. Bridget Phillipson, she says, we've created, another 500,000 free meals. It's not free, Bridget. It's not your money. Regardless of you doing a terrible job, you get paid. I'm the best in my field. And through no fault of my own, but because of your government's policies, my business is just stagnating. Unfortunately, I can stagnate for 2 or 3 years because they'll be gone, and then there'll be a massive boost, and then I will wealth create again, and I'll prosper. And in the meantime, I get to see my children a bit more. But it's not what I want to do, Mark. I want to go out and smash it.
And at the heart of this, Vernon, is socialism, the failed idea that never dies.
Politics of envy. That's the problem. Politics of envy. People that make money, more often than not, work harder. They take more risks. They put their house on the line. They get a first charge, a second charge, a third charge to go out there and smash it and make money, provide jobs, pay your taxes for this brilliant country that now is in the toilet.
Toilet.
Is wrong. Everything's wrong with this country. But because my business is here, I can't leave. If I could, I'd be gone.
If you could, you'd be gone. And I've had so many people say that to me on the show, that if they could afford it or if it was practically possible, they'd be out of here. They'd go to Singapore, they'd go to the United States, they'd even go to war-torn Dubai.
Yeah, well, my other half was Polish and she has a beautiful property in Poland.
Yeah.
Which I'd go to tomorrow. But she's Polish, but she prefers to live in England, which is I can't get my head around it.
But actually, Poland have sorted out quite a lot of their issues. It's a very safe, harmonious society, isn't it?
Yeah, but they're very patriotic.
Yeah.
They don't have free Palestine, and they don't have statutory marches for a tyrant in Iran. Everything in this country is wrong. The wrong people are here. The wrong policies are in place. I spoke to you many months ago, Mark, and was very emotional about my daughter. She's 12 years of age. She is a beautiful young lady with a life ahead of her. Her father won't allow her to catch the bus. Do you know why? Because it's not safe. And you've got the idiots in Westminster who are saying, oh, yeah, it's absolutely fine. We've got this new thing coming in now for Islamophobia. Please tell me, Mark, why people who come to this country expect the natives, us, birthright humans, to compromise. And yet we've got a prime minister. Just think about this: if a prime minister with a Jewish wife, and the one community in this world that's under threat more than anybody is the Jewish community. Honestly, 2 and 2 make 5, and they're gaslighting us. And I'm happy they can sue me if they want to, because I'm telling the truth. I'm a passionate patriot of the United Kingdom, and I've had enough. And my business is going nowhere through no fault of my own. I'm the best in my field. I produce the best work. And unfortunately, because of the economic circumstances created by not just Labour, but also the Tories beforehand, because they abandoned the Tory policies, everything's wrong, Mark. I drive a beautiful car, but from a private car, I can't drive it. It's not suitable for the roads. It's horrendous. I'm waiting for the police on the Saturday morning to pull me over because I'm on the wrong side of the road avoiding the potholes. It's like Dodgems.
It's just not working, is it? Vernon,
we're in a terrible place.
I mean, it's amazing. And that you mentioned, right, the economy's in the toilet because of policies of the last couple of decades. Completely agree with that. We've also got open borders. And you're telling me that 25 years ago, your 12-year-old daughter would have been fine to get the bus home. Now she can't. That is a changed Britain that no one voted for. Go on.
5 years. 5 years ago. She's 12 years of age.
5 years ago, it was safer.
It was different. I would say the last 2 years. I mean, you've got a mayor in London who produced statistics that are lies.
Yeah.
Actual lies.
Well, what he talks about is how there are fewer homicides. Well, getting murdered in London is not the problem. The problem in London is getting stabbed or suffering a sexual assault, which is on the rise. Vernon, before I let you go, is there any hope for the future? Can this be fixed under a future administration?
Yeah, there's always hope, Mark, because there's people like you and I who care for our country. I'll never stop fighting for my country. But by the same token, the only solution, Mark, is to get business people to run the country. Because everything starts with business.
Yep.
All those people who are employed, please listen.
It's national income, isn't it?
If business works, businesses hire people. People get jobs. If they get jobs, they pay tax. If they pay tax, they buy new cars, they buy new houses, they spend more money in the supermarkets, in the shops. But it all starts. But if you tax your way on business, if that's your policy, which is Labour's, you don't get growth. Never have you taxed, never as an economy, taxed itself to death and grown. honestly, Mark, 2 and 2, the joined up thinking of these pathetic liars in Westminster, and I mean them all.
Yeah.
You know, Nigel Farage is probably going to get the next ticket. But you know what? I don't trust him. I don't trust him because ultimately I think he's going to pander to a certain community. Oh, my God, you're a racist for saying that. No, I'm not a racist. This is England. This is Wales, Scotland. Yeah, this is the natives' country. If you want to come here, these are the laws. We're not going to compromise.
Yeah. Vernon, listen, I'll tell you what, mate. You know something? I could listen to you all morning because you talk so much sense. You're a wealth creator. You've smashed it for 9 years, and the policies of this government have made your business completely stagnant. It's criminal. It's a race to the bottom. Socialism, the failed idea that never dies. Vernon, thank you for your call. Thank you for the truth bombs. Is Sir Keir Starmer a traitor? Here's a voice note from Jennifer.
Morning, Mark. Is Starmer a traitor? Absolutely. 100%. No question. I've been saying it for ages. The question is really, why? Why does he hate Britain so much? What is it about Britain that he hates? He's lived here all his life, hasn't he? What's it ever done on him? He's sinister. He's dangerous with it. And I absolutely don't think he's going anywhere. I have said that I believe he will stay in number 10 as long as he possibly can. He will cling on to the framework of number 10. But why does he want to change Britain? Why is diversity always our strength? Why is that pushed down our throats? I don't get it, and I suppose it will all come out in the wash one day, and I'm looking forward to seeing why. Thanks, Mark.
Jennifer, brilliant voice note. Is Sir Keir Starmer a traitor to this country? You're listening to Talk Breakfast.
Coming up on tonight's Plank of the Week.
25% of migrants use Britain as a cash machine.
Fury as Sir Winston Churchill is axed from banknotes.
And Keir Starmer is named the most unpopular Prime Minister ever.
It's time for Plank of the Week.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
You're listening to Talk Breakfast, and the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have blasted the author Tom Bower, whose new book has damning new revelations about the couple. Let's get reaction from Talk's royal correspondent, Rupert Bell. Rupert, good morning.
Good morning, Mark.
Rupert, what's the story here? The Sussexes are not happy. There's trouble in paradise.
Yes, it's accusations that Meghan said, get your finger out of my face, all sorts of allegations that basically William, and we know there were troubles when they were getting married. That was the Sussexes. And William said, slow down a bit. And then there were allegations of bullying. And he's further highlighting the rift between the Sussexes and the Waleses, in a nutshell. They, of course, the Sussexes, that is, deny everything that has been suggested in this Tom Bower book, who, it has to be said, over the years has always taken a pretty dim view of the Sussexes and has reported as such, and they just think, the Sussexes, that is, that he's just not telling us that it is. But there does seem to be a consistent theme running through his books, and no one is denying the fact that there were allegations against the Sussexes for the way they treated staff, particularly when they went to Australia. And it all came to a head, and the Sussexes and Meghan, it says, why aren't I being paid for the trip they did back in 2018, I think it was, because she thought, basically she should be a hired hand. Well, they're going to Australia and they're now trying to basically get so much money for every visit they do. So Tom Bower is being true to course here, I think, with the book that is coming out, with his news revelations about the Sussexes.
Yes, well, Tom Bower is shaping up to be Harry and Meghan's arch nemesis. But notably, notwithstanding his devastating last book about the couple, they have not sued. And this is a couple that are not afraid of a courtroom.
Well, exactly. And that, I think, these books, you look at Andrew Lowney's book about the Duke, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, everything has to go through a legal process and stand up. And I'm sure Tom Bower is no different than any other author. You can't just suddenly go around making these allegations without some credence. And it's a very fine line. But Tom Bower is well sourced, and I think that is it is important to reveal that they don't sue. But obviously the Sussexes will try and defend their position. But as the royal family, there's a lot of the Queen's greatest phrase with what's going on in the royal family is recollections may vary, and obviously she was with particular reference to the Sussexes.
Indeed. Well, Harry and Meghan have attacked what they call Tom Bower's deranged new book. But if they don't sue, then that will speak volumes.
There may be a point. But Harry currently is obviously involved in this court case that is still going on. They've got, it would be a brave call to start suing. Sometimes the best policy is to just say, okay, it's a book, don't say anything, move on. Because actually, if they go to a court case, then it will highlight everything that's going on and draw more focus on them. So maybe they, for once, may decide, well, we'll just take it on the chin.
Either that, or privately they confess that what Tom Bower has written is true. Another fascinating suggestion from the book, Rupert, which is being serialised in the Times newspaper, is that Queen Camilla is thought to have said that Meghan Markle brainwashed Harry. That's a devastating claim, isn't it?
Not the first time I've heard that. So there's nothing. You saw William's reaction, telling his brother, just hold back, don't get married straight away. And I think there is an element of that. Harry was, obviously fell in love, head over heels in love, and as a result just did everything she wanted. And she's a very clever lady, and obviously found a way to brainwash, maybe a strong word, but I think there is an element of truth in exactly what she said. What I hear from friends and everything, it is an indication that she controlled him right from the get-go. And as a result, ended up causing the ultimate rift by Harry then moving to California with his wife.
How damaging could Tom Bower's new book be to the Sussex brand, Rupert?
Well, they're trying to rebuild it. Hence the reason with this trip to Australia. Now, and obviously she's lost her arrangement with Netflix, with her As Ever brand. She says they were holding her back. She's trying to relaunch that in Australia when they go there to test the market. So it's whether it's damaging the brand any more than a damaged brand that it is already, let's be honest, because Netflix saying we don't want anything to do with you. And it's proving quite hard to get As Ever as a credible brand. So I think it won't do any more damage than what most public people think about them anyway. So I think it's going to be interesting. They've got a long way back to try and win the PR battle. And this latest book from Tom Bauer is not going to help their cause.
One of the allegations, Rupert, is that Harry cut off his old friends when he met Meghan, even changing his phone number, making it difficult for them to reach him. Well, that's a view shared by the royal butler, Grant Harold, who told me on this programme that one of the more surprising aspects of Harry since he married Meghan is that he doesn't speak to his friends anymore.
And that's something I've heard as well from different sources that, there were talks that, when they would have, he would go do shooting weekends. Meghan didn't like it and said, I'm not going to do this anymore, and stopped him doing the things that he may have enjoyed, whatever your view. And Meghan said no. And also about the friends, she wanted, almost total control of him. And backing up what the Queen Camilla said is, brainwashing him into making these decisions. And, I think that's why he cuts quite a lonely figure, because his friends have all throughout his life do feel ostracized. It hasn't, it means that he is just a bit of a lonely soul, where she's got her friends in America, or quasi friends, whatever. And he, though, is very much on his own, and I think it's quite sad. So again, the kind of revelations we're getting in the book, it's really backing up what people have been saying for a long time.
Harry and Meghan are running scared. They are terrified of the truth bombs in Tom Bauer's book, aren't they? They've responded with a very aggressive statement, very defensive, Rupert. Mr. Bauer's commentary has long crossed the line from criticism into fixation. This is someone who's publicly stated the monarchy, in fact, depends on actually obliterating the Sussexes from our state of life language that speaks for itself. He's made a career out of constructing ever more elaborate theories about people he does not know and has never met. Those interested in the facts will look elsewhere. Those seeking deranged conspiracy and melodrama know exactly where to find him. Devastating words, but I think they protest too much, Rupert.
Methinks they do, and as you've alluded to, if they do, hey, put your hands in the air, Mark. Yeah, I agree with you here, Mark, but where I think, and backs up your comment, if they feel he's deranged and he's got a fixation, then the way they can sort it out is saying this is libel.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Three minutes past 8. Happy Sunday, one and all. Mark Dolan, Talk Breakfast. Lovely to have your company. I hope you're having an excellent weekend, whatever you're up to. You may still be under the duvet waiting for that first cup of tea of the day. You may be planning a nice family occasion, whatever you're up to. We're here for you, getting your opinions on the radio and on the telly. You might well be at work, because most people have got to work 7 days a week just to pay those bills. Perhaps you're at the tail end of a night shift. Whatever you're up to, we salute your contribution to the unstoppable powerhouse that is the British economy. I've got a very big show for you this morning. Yes, folks, we're coming in hot. Breaking this morning, Donald Trump claims the new supreme leader of Iran is dead. But has the US president bitten off more than he can chew in the Middle East? And will we pay the price? And with misery for Brits as energy prices spiral and the cost at the pumps heads further north, can the Chancellor Rachel Reeves even afford to help subsidise our bills? Meanwhile, Westminster insiders are predicting that Starmer's reign in number 10 will end. They say he'll be gone by the summer. But will his replacement bring back free movement in an effort to rekindle our relationship with the EU? Plus the scandal of BP and Shell making £5 billion since the war in Iran began. In a Talk Breakfast exclusive, growing anger in Spain as mass immigration impacts society and the economy. That is a Talk Breakfast exclusive at 8:30. You will not want to miss it. Spain, a warning to the free world. Now, my phone number is 03444991000. Tommy's on the phones today, taking your calls. A simple question this morning: is Sir Keir Starmer a traitor to this country? Text the word TALK in your message to 87222. Leave us a voice note. And as the saying goes, let's talk. Now, I'm delighted to say that you can hear us on DAB+, in-app and online, because, of course, the DNA of the Talk brand is radio, but you can watch the show. It's a TV product now, and you can see all of my amazing guests, including my amazing guest in Spain at 8:30, an incredible conversation, mass immigration in Spain. They've just granted asylum to 500,000 illegal immigrants. So if you want to see all my guests, head over to YouTube, put the word TALK in the search box, and then up we pop. And let me tell you, it's well worth a watch. I'll tell you why, especially because it's being directed by Luke, who's looking after the shop today. Luke knows his onions. He's worked with Piers Morgan, no less. But, I mean, the real highlight's got to be working with me, hasn't it? Let's have a look at today's front pages. The Sunday Telegraph. Starmer may send drones to the Gulf. Well, that's not a bad idea, is it, producer Jodie? Because we don't have boats or planes or soldiers. So let's send them drones. Where do we get our drones from these days? Probably Argos, I would have thought. Britain to have open EU border if Labour rebels win. And Sir Keir report said ditching jury trials led to wrongful convictions. And yet he presses ahead. Sunday Times. Epstein victim was trafficked to Mohammed Al-Fayed, the former Harrods owner. Britain may send drones to help Trump in Hormuz. And Richard Tice avoided £600,000 in tax. Let's take a look at this. Is Big Richard Tice in trouble? Let's have a look. The deputy leader of Reform UK avoided nearly £600,000 in corporation tax after obtaining a rare legal status for his company. Richard Tice then channeled the company's dividends into structures including an offshore trust and a string of dormant businesses. Several did not pay any tax during the relevant period. Well, have I got news for you here on this one? I think you'll find that what Richard Tice has done there is demonstrated his prowess as an entrepreneur. No law is broken. So the Sunday Times getting a bit sniffy about Reform UK's deputy leader. He's avoided 600k in tax because he understands the tax rules and he's a very smart operator. Maybe that's someone that should be in government. Somebody that knows the rules and regulations and is entrepreneurial in his approach. I'm so sorry, Sunday Times, but I think you're barking up the wrong tree there. If he had illegally avoided taxes, of course, that is a whole different conversation. Hello, Angela Rayner. Britain may send drones to help Trump in Hormuz is the other story. And missing babies blamed on men. Where's this one going? About 600,000 young women in Britain may miss out on motherhood, partly because of immature men, despite evidence that an overwhelming majority still hope to have children. The research from the Centre for Social Justice think tank predicts about 3 million women aged 16 to 45 are projected not to have children, compared with only 2.4 million in their grandparents' generation. The CSJ has labelled them the missing mothers at a time when Britain's birth rates continue to fall. I'll tell you for why. Because there is no point having kids and bringing them into the world, into this country, when we've got the cult of welfareism, where it doesn't pay to go to work, where young people can't get a job even if they've got an excellent degree. You don't want to bring kids into a world where we don't have a secure energy supply and you have to take out a mortgage to switch the heater on. They don't want to bring kids into a country where there's no national identity. You've got parallel communities, people not speaking the language, following the rule of law, or indeed participating in the culture. That's why people don't want to have kids. Sunday Express, fresh spike in migrants applying to be UK citizens. And last but not least, the Sunday Mirror. Iran war exclusive. We will fight to keep bills down, says Chancellor. Let's get reaction to all of the big stories from the fearless and outstanding political strategist, Peter Barnes. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning, Mark. How are you doing?
I'm very well, and I'd like to take this opportunity at 8:09 on a Sunday morning to wish all of the mothers out there, especially mine, a very happy Mother's Day. My mother is an incredible lady. She's wise, she's beautiful, she's loving, and I owe my life to her. So, Mum, may God bless you. Is your mum still around, Peter?
Yes, she is, and she is probably one of the best mums because she puts up with me, so put it that way.
Listen, she gave us Peter Barnes, which is her great legacy.
And I apologise for that.
She's owning it. She's owning it. So Mother's Day is very important, and we love all the mothers out there. And my heart goes out to any of you listening who don't have your mums anymore, and I know that they're deep in your hearts and in your memories. Let's talk about a future Prime Minister of this country. It's becoming increasingly clear, Peter Barnes, that Starmer is on borrowed time. He may well be gone by the end of the summer. And the Telegraph suggesting that his replacement could take us into a customs union with the EU, the price of which could be free movement. Be afraid, be very afraid.
Oh, be terrified, but I'm honestly surprised it's not happened yet. I mean, the literal day after the general election, Angela Rayner came out and said Brexit is back on the table. So I'm honestly surprised that we haven't had even further integration already. Basically, what a lot of us believed within SW1 was that the Starmer government in the first term was supposed to bring us into alignment. So basically, it would be a hop, step and a jump back into the EU in the second Labour term, which that was the long-term plan. However, it's the Labour government, and competency and, forethought, not too big words for them. But yeah, the idea of going back into the EU, a dying institution, a corrupt institution, it is that, they've never once passed their own fraud checks. Their own checks they haven't passed, yet, they're the bastions of liberty and freedom and all the rest of it. I mean, it's just nonsense. The reason we have poor economic growth is two things. It's called net zero and it's regulation. And what are the EU absolute experts in? Net zero and regulation. We have yet to recover economically from the 2008 financial crisis. That is why your bills are going up. It's not Iran. Don't let Rachel Reeves fool you. That's what she's trying to do. She's done it since she became the Chancellor. It was Trump's tariffs, it was this, it was that. It wasn't. It was her inept policies and the ideological pursuit of strangling this nation and, choking it to death. And that's what we're at now. What, zero growth in January is an international embarrassment. And how is she still got a job? I do not understand.
Well, absolutely. I can't disagree with any of that. A future prospective leader of the Labour Party is going to have to stand on a very left-wing platform in order to win. The last thing the country needs.
Oh, without a doubt. I heard a great voice note from one of your listeners earlier on about scorched earth. I thought that was absolutely bang on. I think that is exactly what we're going to see, that they will literally just start throwing money at everything. And if you remember, that's exactly what Jeremy Corbyn started to offer when he was running against Boris Johnson as a kind of, please just vote for us. You know, it's the Labour idea of we just throw money at the problem and hopefully it'll fix itself. The reality is, what I do think will happen is I think it will likely be Ed Miliband, and it's the catastrophe that he's going to cause this nation because he's just going to pursue the green agenda like we've never seen, and that will literally strangle us. Because I say this every single time we talk about this, no civilization has ever progressed with high energy costs and production. It doesn't exist. So therefore, this guy is a very dangerous person. And I tell you now, I'd rather keep Keir Starmer than what is coming around the corner. I genuinely believe that.
Blimey, you've been on the cooking sherry again. Bit early for that, even though it is Sunday, Peter.
Yeah, no. This one's just water. I'm just checking. But no, but this is the reality of it, that Angela Rayner, lefty. Ed Miliband, lefty. West Streeting, he's just incompetent. So, he's a Shabana Mahmood, too right-wing for the Labour Party, which is a hilarious comment to me, but there we go. The reality is that they are going to swing to the left, and they're going to start throwing our money. It's not the government money, it's our money, and they're going to start throwing it at people and trying to bribe votes, because that's all they can do now. Their polling is at rock bottom, and my bigger fear is actually the rise of the Greens and how they are really pushing this kind of us versus them narrative on a populist left-wing agenda, that basically you're only poor because a billionaire is a billionaire. That's just not true. And that is the narratives that the Labour Party are going to have to combat on the left. And yeah, it's going to be horrible.
Well, this is a
horrible
real
years,
concern. What you've got with Ed Miliband as well is somebody who will seek to honour the legacy of his Marxist academic father, Ralph Miliband, who taught at the London School of Economics.
Oh, yeah, but don't forget, he's got 2 ovens, so he'll be perfectly fine. And, it's just rather ridiculous, isn't it, that, we're getting, ethics lectures and morality lectures on people like Ed Miliband. It's just everything wrong in our politics has kind of come full circle, and we're living in what I call the era of consequences because, like I said, we've yet to economically recover from 2008. How is that a thing? We've got rising unemployment, we've got low energy production, we've got young people fleeing the nation. If you listen to a lot of the focus group data, which, comes across my desk, it is all saying that if they had the money, a lot of people would have left by now, and they're putting what money they have into getting their kids out of the country. That is what is happening, and it is happening because they don't see a future here, and that has to change, because once everybody who's an economic, once they make the money, those people, once they leave, who's making any money here? We are really circling the drain, and it is a very perilous time to have these incompetent nitwits in charge.
Low-skilled migrants pouring into the country, wealth creators leaving. It doesn't end well. A question we've been running this morning, Peter, is a simple one. Is Sir Keir Starmer a traitor to this government? Here's a voice note from Bob.
Hi, Mark. Bob Marsh here from Cambridge. Great show, buddy, as per. This government, led by a fascistic traitor, should be officially recognised as a hostile enemy to this nation. As such, all necessary resources should be deployed to unseat it. The organs within, significantly including the corrupt and politically led judicial system, cannot be recognised as authoritative and so must be ignored as such. Any fragmented efforts in this drive to oust this government will fail. A united and organised force must act with clear and concise objectives in place. Unless we act now, the damage that will be done during the potential remainder of this tyrant's reign will be irreparable. Either we act now or we will exist to regret. Thanks, buddy.
Well, I love your message, but the issue we've got is, how do we act? In a democracy with a government that has a healthy majority, we are a hostage to fortune, aren't we? We are sitting on this roller coaster in a white knuckle ride, and we've got no control over what's happening, Peter.
Yeah, I understand the anger and all of that. However, you voted for him. That is the reality. He told you very clearly he likes Davos. He was told you very clearly what he was going to do.
He said the true bit out
and people
loud.
still put the yes, and people didn't want to listen to it because they were that angry with the Conservatives. That is why we're in this mess, realistically. It is because we were so angry at something, we didn't bother to actually listen to the other guy that was likely to win. And when I said this, as soon as Starmageddon, as it was called, this kind of huge whopping majority was going to be the reality of Keir Starmer, I said, that is when Reform and the Tories should have made a deal to stop this, because they might still be in office, but a prime minister with a 60 majority is a lot more controllable than a prime minister with 100 and odd, 200, whatever. This is the big problem, is that he is basically unstoppable, and you're asking turkeys to vote for Christmas. Never going to happen. Never going to happen. This is why I actually think he's not going anywhere, because they've got the perfect vehicle to push their entire agenda through. He'll get all the negative press. They'll get exactly what they want, and that's that. I'm not convinced that even after May, he's got to go. Because, one, he doesn't have the self-awareness, the dignity, and the respect to the office that he holds to resign. And more importantly, his backbenchers won't kick him out.
Wait a minute. Are you telling me at 18 minutes past 8 on a Sunday morning that we're stuck with Starmer?
I think we are. I genuinely do, because think about it. When we looked at the two leadership contenders, Ed Miliband and Angela Rayner, that all died a death very quickly. There was no appetite for a leadership race. Everyone keeps saying May because it's, you know, it's going to be this big whopping loss for them. It was in last May. So why is he still here? The Epstein stuff, Mandelson should have gone. Low growth, high unemployment, he should have gone. He's still here. So in what world is he just going to go because of, you know, some bad polling results, election results, which you could just say very easily, no government ever does well in local elections whilst they're incumbent. That is the line. I can write it for you now. That is what we're going to see. We are stuck with him, I'm afraid.
Well, this is a devastating development. I've got to bring you some breaking news. Donald Trump is not ready to make a deal with Iran because the terms are, and I quote, not good enough yet. The US president said the conditions of any agreement had to be very solid, including Iran abandoning all its military aims. He said, Iran wants to make a deal and I don't want to make it because the terms aren't good enough yet, he told NBC News late on Saturday. Let's get more on Starmer. Is he a traitor to this country? Here's a voice note from Bill, if I can, David. Have we played Bill? No, I don't think we have. So let's do that. We'll come to it, and all about your voice notes on this show. What we're going to do, we're just going to put 10p in the meter. I don't know whether this is a power cut as a result of this government's net zero policies, but we'll get to those voice notes in just a moment. So much more to get through, though. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Is Starmer a traitor to this country? This is Talk Breakfast.
Coming up on tonight's Plank of the Week.
25% of migrants use Britain as a cash machine.
Fury as Sir Winston Churchill is axed from banknotes.
And Keir Starmer is named the most unpopular Prime Minister ever.
It's time for Plank of the Week.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast, and if you're just joining us, we have a developing story, which is that Israel has launched wide-scale strikes on Iran, as Donald Trump says the US is not ready to make a deal to end the war. With me down the line is the brilliant political strategist Peter Barnes. Peter, what's your latest appraisal of what's happening in the Middle East? Has Donald Trump bitten off more than he can chew?
No, not at all. This is exactly what was supposed to happen. It's all going rather according to plan. If you actually listen to even a lot of the former military advisors in the UK, they say this was all planned out about 15 years ago. So this idea that there's no plan, no nothing is all categorical nonsense. It's Trump derangement syndrome and orange man bad. I don't listen to it, and neither should anybody else. The reality is, when we look at what Israel's doing, and we look at Trump's comments last night on NBC about, you know, he's not ready to make a deal, it's because it's the same deal that was on the table in Vienna, and it was the same deal, Geneva, and what was going to be on the table in Vienna. It basically is Iran gives up its entire proxy network and it gives up its nuclear aims. When they, agreed to that, this will end. That is the deal. And I don't understand why everybody thinks that, oh, Trump should make a deal to end this. Why? You know, this guy, the Iranian regime, realistically will not stop till they get their hands on a nuclear weapon. That is what they want. They've said it very clearly for a very long time, since 1979. So, you know, they said the quiet part out loud and nobody bothered to listen to them. The big thing really for Trump now is, can he control the oil markets? Can he keep the price of energy low enough to make sure that his own domestic base over in America he can keep them on side long enough? But also, can he keep European and global allies on side to a degree, as much as he can, because of the oil, the price rises, and also the price rises in gas as well. We always focus on the oil bit. There's also the gas market as well that we have to keep our eye on. But as far as I could tell, we put, I think it's 179 billion barrels of strategic supply back into the market. You know, this has all been thought out. Yes, it's a war. It's not going to go according to plan perfectly. Of course it's not. However, this idea that, you know, we should all start panicking, I'm sorry, it's not there, in my opinion. But again, a day is a long time in politics, so it's even longer in a war.
Well, indeed, and it's important that a country that controls, I believe it's the second largest gas fields in the world are owned by Iran. So it's good that this regime is not one which seeks to bring down the entire Western world.
Oh, yes, without a doubt. I mean, one of the best things America ever did, and I don't understand why we didn't do it, was pursue a independent energy policy. You know, our own supply. We've got it literally under our feet. We would not be affected as much by what happens in another country if we were not reliant on other nations. Until we have independent security over our food and over our energy, we are at the perils and the mercy of a US president or what happens anywhere around the world. One thing we have to get into our heads is that the nation state is actually dead. We now live in the market state. So basically, what happens in another country is very much our business because we're so interconnected through the global economy. So we have to be very secure as much as we can be, so when something does happen, we can at least have a little bit of resilience. We are so unresilient at our economy at the moment. It's actually terrifying if people really understood it to the level that even I do. And I'm far from an expert on it, but we really have to understand that Iran, the war was an inevitability, but I will say that we have to be very smart on how we get more involved on this now, because Starmer is in an absolute catastrophe place politically and with Washington, because he wants to send these drones over. We're sending four extra Typhoons over to Qatar and all the rest of it. He's trying to play politics because of a by-election. I mean, this is just... you know, I'm out of words to describe it that Ofcom will let me use.
Well, most definitely. Peter, does Donald Trump want to unilaterally disarm Iran, or does he want regime change? Which is it?
Unilaterally disarm. If you actually read the Strategic Defense Review that was put out when Trump first became president the second time round, they made it very clear they had no interest in regime change. They had no interest in long-term wars. If you look at Venezuela, look at where they have intervened since that, it has been strategic. It has been sharp, in, out, done. That is what Trump does now. This is what we call Pax Transactionalis. It's, in other words, everything is transactional. I'll give you this, you do that. And this is how Trump operates. And it's basically how the world has actually operated for a very long time. We just all conned ourselves to think that, you know, we all hold hands and sing Kumbaya. But what Trump's really been able to do is really show that you can actually just affect the change of a nation. You don't have to rebuild it. He wants an Iran that is in America's favor, not in America's image. So he's not interested in building a democracy because, you know, that's not the US president's job. He's there to put America first. That's his job. And getting rid of the Ayatollah, securing the basically securing oil, taking out China, and then also being able to make sure that, there's not a nuclear maniac running around. I think that's pretty good, if you ask me.
Do you think that things will play out in the president's favour in the months ahead? Do you think this can be job done within the calendar year?
I think the only thing that will stop the US president is short-sighted Democrat politicians and, Westminster botherers, these kind of a European kind of, let's have a meeting, let's have this, these people that don't think any longer than any further than the end of their nose. This is my point, is realistically, Trump has a very vision, but there are lots of ways to stop him and curtail him. If you look at the tariff situation, they took that out from under him. That was a great tool for the president to have to kick nations into shape. That was the point of them. But, they took that away. They didn't see the end goal because they're so driven by Orange Man bad. They don't see the plan because they think he's a lunatic. He's not. He has a vision. He has a clear agenda. You've just got to actually listen to him and watch what he does and see how things actually connect together. It is not 4D chess, it's simple statecraft.
The fearless and articulate Peter Barnes. Peter, thank you so much for a brilliant conversation. Peter Barnes there, regular on Talk, of course. Have an excellent Sunday, Peter, and we will catch up soon. Peter Barnes there, striking a positive note in the context of breaking news, which is that Israel has launched wide-scale attacks on Iran. As Donald Trump says, the US is not ready yet to make a deal to end the war. Is Sir Keir Starmer a traitor to this country? That's my question to you this morning. Book your place on the show. My phone number is 0344 499 1000. Here's an excellent voice note from Bill. Take a listen.
Morning, Mark. Bill in Telford here. Talking about drones, can we send Starmer? Because he just drones a lot. Be doing us a favour. Try.
We needed a smile on a Sunday morning. Next up, in a Talk Breakfast exclusive, huge anger in Spain about open borders. Is Spain a warning to the Western world? We've got a top insider live from Spain next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast. Let's take a note from Jay on an issue around immigration in this country. The idea that if you break into Britain, you get paid £40,000 to leave. Nice work if you can get it. Take it away, Jay.
Morning, Mark. Fantastic show as always. I just want to say about this offer migrants 40 grand to return home scheme, even though they're going to keep coming back probably under different names, because we don't actually know their real ID when they come in anyway. They're going to use taxpayers' money to give them 40 grand to send them back. I mean, if they offered me 40 grand right now to emigrate to the States, that would pay for all my travelling costs and moving all my stuff over, and that I'd take my family tomorrow. I'd go. I'd move jobs. I'd go. If they want to offer me 40 grand, I'm more than happy to go. I think there's a few Brits that would follow as well at the moment. What I don't understand is they're using our money, but surely if they put a vote together and said, how would you like your taxpayers' money spent, we'd say, well, stop the illegal crossings. The money that you're giving France as taxpayers should be stopping it. Reinvest all that millions you give to France in the UK and have a force that turns them round.
What a brilliant voice note. Thank you for that, Jay. And you raised lots of issues there. Of course, concerns around immigration are not limited to this country. In Spain, there is growing public anger as mass immigration impacts society and the economy. And it's my understanding that the Spanish authorities are planning to grant legal status to around 500,000 undocumented migrants. Let's get the inside story. I'm delighted to welcome broadcaster, writer and Spanish politician Virginia Martinez, who joins us live from Spain. Good morning, Virginia.
Good morning, Mark.
Can you give me the inside story here? What is going on with the 500,000 migrants who look like they're going to receive legal status? What exactly is happening?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, you say 500,000 immigrants. We're not very sure about that because actually police reports show that it could be between 500,000 to 1.5 million. So you can imagine the reaction of the Spanish people, the reaction of our citizens. It's of complete outrage and concern. Outrage because obviously attempting to replace the Spanish population is something that we're completely against. This is just to bring a new pool of voters for their own benefit. And this is just to make the Prime Minister remain in power. I'm concerned because we all know that such a huge number, such a huge and sudden influx of illegal immigrants will destroy our welfare. The education system, the healthcare system, for example, the affordable housing, the benefit system, these will put such a strain in public services that they will become unavailable for both Spaniards and immigrants. I don't know if you know, but recent polls have shown that 60% of Spanish population is against the mass regularization, and figures show that almost 90% of youngsters are against this mass regularization, but our Prime Minister doesn't care. He has a plan to remain in power, and that's what we're going to have to put on with.
And this is quite different to the UK, Virginia, because what we've got in the UK is around 50, 60,000 people entering the country illegally every year, and we process their asylum claims. Around half of them get to stay. The other half are either essentially sort of in limbo here or they're returned to their country of origin. But what the Spanish are looking at doing, as you've said, just to be clear, is to grant legal status to maybe over 1 million illegal immigrants. This is not people who are in Spain seeking asylum. They're undocumented. They are illegals.
They are, absolutely. And you don't need to have a job. You don't need to have, you don't need to speak Spanish. You could be a criminal because our own Ministry of Justice even advertised, and they did this in 2022, they advertised in X how to clean your criminal record. And also, we need to know that a criminal record is different to a police record. You may have committed a crime, but you may have not yet been convicted. And if your country of origin as well does not provide you with a criminal record certificate on time for your resident application, for example, due to infrastructure limitations, you can write your own official declaration stating that you have not committed any crimes in your country or mine. And finally, are we going to put the same level of trust on, for example, an Islamic country criminal law than that of our Western country criminal law? Do they have the same standards that we have? Because I believe that there are fundamental differences in our origin, philosophy, and application, don't you think? And also, some of these countries, for example, beating women is not a crime, while being a homosexual is penalized with several years in prison. So this is what our Spanish Prime Minister is going to put us through.
And it's ironic, isn't it, that the Spanish political left, the socialists, are going to allow Spanish society to change in a way which is very damaging and very dangerous to women in particular.
Very, very, very dangerous. Women and girls are far less safe in Spain as a direct consequence of mass migration. For example, rapes have almost quadrupled since Pedro Sanchez took power. In 2017, there were 1,382 reported rapes, and last year there were 5,363. This is an increase of 288%. Just to give you an example, is 15 women raped per day, and these are the ones we know of. Spain has dropped 20 spots from the 5th spot to the 25th in the international women's safety and security ranking since 2018. We are falling behind countries like Estonia, Singapore, or the Emirates. From all the police detention, for example, in the Basque Country, 64% are foreigners. 33% of all our prisoners in Spanish jails are foreigners. And of those, 30% come from Morocco. In regions like Madrid, Catalonia, and the Basque Country, around 50% of prisoners are foreigners. And overall, 56% of prisoners under 22 years old are foreigners. So it is safe to say that there is a clear link between mass immigration and violence. And it is safe to say that certain countries and certain cultures have proven to be more violent. In fact, a recent poll showed that 92% of Spanish citizens feel that illegal immigration is a state problem. 60% of those socialist voters think that immigration policies should be tightened, and 85% supports deportation of those who commit crimes.
Now, you've pointed out that with this open borders experiment, women are less safe in Spain. How has day-to-day life changed in this once great Spanish country, European country?
Well, we have had social impacts from changes in our communities, changes in our neighborhoods, from shops that have completely transformed, neighborhoods that are completely unsafe, no-go areas where Sharia law sometimes rules and the police are scared to go in. Some of our politicians who are trying to erase our own Christian traditions, for example, we now don't say Happy Christmas, we have to say Happy Holidays, while they have no issues in extending their wishes to the Happy Ramadan. From a female rights perspective, reports from social workers have shown that girls over the age of 12 are dropping from extracurricular activities. This is girls from a specific culture. For example, they don't go to swimming pool lessons anymore, and sometimes they don't go out in the street without parent supervision after 6:30 p.m.
And that would be that would likely be Spanish Muslim people.
Yes, those kind of cultures have a different type of female rights view. So, for example, we are now seeing more and more women hidden under Islamic clothing, like burqas, like niqabs, like hijabs. We are seeing unseen scenes of arranged marriages, female genital mutilation, which has never ever happened in Spain, as you can imagine.
First cousin marriage?
No, we're not having that, probably because our Pakistani pool is not as big as others. We receive immigration mainly from Morocco and Algeria, possibly because they are closer to our borders.
And do you feel overall, therefore, Virginia, that Spain increasingly from day to day is not Spain anymore, the Spain that you know and love?
Well, definitely. I mean, we are seeing scenes of immigrants in displays of in big plazas praying, or celebrating their own
festivals and
parties
traditions.
that.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Festival. They're celebrating their own festivals
Yeah, their
and
own
traditions.
festivals that are not at all what we celebrate. And on top of that, we are seeing our own celebrations being pushed back. So it is sad to see. It is definitely sad to see.
Well, Spain is one of the great civilizations of European history, with an amazing culture, food, language, tradition. And it's something to be proud of, isn't it? Spanish national identity. Spain is an incredible country, and you feel it's a country that's just being lost because of the policies of recent governments.
It is definitely, it is quite sad. We have our own traditions, our own culture, our own history. We have our Spanish language. A lot of these immigrants that are coming in, they don't even speak our Spanish language. Our food is special, as you can know. Anyone that comes to Spain, they like to try our own food. And for example, even in schools, our cuisine is just being replaced by halal menus because in some of our schools there is a majority immigration. So our food is being pushed away. Our traditions are being pushed. We are losing our essence.
And the big problem, there's a big problem, Virginia. The Spanish eat a lot of pork. The amazing jamón ibérico, and the Spanish drink a little bit of alcohol too.
We do. We do like our pork, we do like our ham, our chorizo, our lomo, and we do enjoy a party. We are a party nation, and we drink. We drink in moderation, but we do drink. It's a social aspect of our living.
Indeed, and of course that may be frowned upon now in certain communities within Spain.
Yes, wherever there is a majority immigrant population coming from a specific culture, we are seeing huge transformations, because at the end of the day, it's a culture incompatible with the ones of Western values.
And Virginia, what would you say to those who would argue that your concerns about population replacement, the erosion of Spanish culture, is racist and a conspiracy theory? What would your answer be to those critics?
Well, it cannot be a conspiracy theory where, for example, my country has grown to 49.5 million people, and 7.2 million of those are legal immigrants. 10 million of those living in Spain have been born in a different country. And we are having a huge influx of illegal immigration. We're definitely having a population replacement. Spanish people are not being able to have children because there is a huge burden on them to pay huge taxes. There are low salaries, so it's very difficult.
They can't buy a house or an apartment.
Absolutely. It's very difficult to make a living in Spain. And this population that is coming in, they're taking over the welfare system. So housing goes to them. They have priority for benefits. Just last week, there was a royal decree that came out where anyone, legal or illegal, will be able to enjoy free healthcare. I mean, you can imagine what that is going to do to our healthcare system.
Now, this is the problem you've got, isn't it, Virginia? Because it's the same in the UK, that Spain has legal immigration, which is low skill. And that means that there are people coming into Spain who do the low-paid jobs that the Spanish won't do. But that's not a good idea, because those people will immediately require in-work benefits. They're going to be a burden on the Spanish taxpayer for the rest of their lives. And then you have illegal immigrants who are 100% a cost, because they need healthcare, they're going to have kids who need schooling, and they're going to require welfare for the rest of their lives. And this is in a country, in Spain, which is already dealing with massive debts and the servicing of that debt. Spain is not a rich country that can afford this level of immigration.
1.7 million of debt, 1.7 trillion of debt we have.
Crazy.
So it is impossible.
So Spain can't actually afford it. I mean, this is a ticking time bomb for the economy, isn't it?
It is. It definitely is. Do you know that we have 600,000 legal immigrants living on benefits, for example?
Wow.
Just in the region of Murcia, where I'm from, 3.6 million euros were given in benefits in Murcia capital 40% of them were given to foreigners, even though they are 12% of the population in the city. Over 10 million euros were taken from the dependency aid for the elderly to provide support for unaccompanied foreign minors. Unemployment rates for legal immigrants are at 18%, while Spanish citizens are at 11%. And in the case of African immigrants, employment rates are 25%. As you have mentioned, there have been studies, plenty of legal studies that show that low-skilled migrant on a minimum wage, for example, a family with a wife and 3 children, would end up costing the state throughout their lives 1.4 million euros. So if you take everything into account, it doesn't add up.
No, it doesn't. It's a Ponzi scheme, isn't it? It's an open borders policy that impacts democratic outcomes and possibly creates a kind of permanent infrastructure of left-wing support. It's obviously unaffordable for the economy, terrible for the culture of a country as well. I've got to tell you, Virginia, the messages are pouring in with support for what is happening in Spain and supporting your position. My viewers and listeners love Spain. The Brits have always adored this country, its culture, its people, its food. You know that half of us go on holiday there every summer. There's a lot of affection for Spain in the UK and, of course, a long-standing friendship between the two nations. Before I let you go, can your country be saved?
Can it be safe? Yes, it can, I suppose. I think there's always hope. There are political parties like the one I work in, for example, that we advocate for strict border controls.
What's your party called?
Vox, V-O-X,
yeah,
led by Santiago Abascal. And we advocate for strict border control. We have been sending clear messages that any illegal immigrant will be deported, that any legal immigrant living in Spain that is sponging off the state, that is living on social housing, that is receiving benefits, that has a criminal record, or is willing to unintegrate, will be deported. So there is hope. There is hope in Spain, and the reason why there's hope is that a lot of these youngsters in Spain, Spanish people, really want to vote for Vox. And this is what has made our prime minister, socialist prime minister, have this mass regularization, because he would want to change the polls, as he is completely plummeted in the polls currently.
Virginia, have you or your colleagues at Vox been described as far-right or fascists or racists?
Absolutely, all the time. Those are the tags that we have now. We put us on like a medal, because it's constant. I mean, and this is not racist. This is the reality. It's just currently the reality is far right and is racist, and common sense says that we're racist, apparently.
And I'm guessing, Virginia, you have no problem with people who have a different skin colour or religion in principle?
Not at all. We have absolutely no issues, as long as you integrate in our country, as long as you come in as in the legal means, like we all do when we go to a different country, as long as you contribute to make our country better. Everyone is welcome that can contribute with their skill set and with their effort into make Spanish a much better country.
Yes, and what you do, if you're lucky enough to get citizenship in Spain, is you become a Spanish person. And that is the only way that immigration can work. I've got so many messages in, Virginia. Mike in Shrewsbury, your fantastic guest, Virginia Martinez, is talking about Spain. It shows us in the UK that we're not unique with our culture and traditions being eroded. It is horrendous. Teresa says your guest is incredible. Virginia could easily be describing Britain. And Stuart says, isn't it strange how the far left have no worries about the demise of women's rights and their safety? And yet, surprisingly, lots of women are willing to vote for them. Virginia, I hope you'll join us again in the very near future. It's been a very important conversation because Spain's story has echoes of our own. We appreciate your time. Virginia Martinez, Spanish politician at Vox. Your reaction, 0344 499 1000. This is Talk Breakfast.
Coming up on tonight's Plank of the Week.
25% of migrants use Britain as a cash machine.
Fury as Sir Winston Churchill is axed from banknotes.
And Keir Starmer is named the most unpopular Prime Minister ever.
It's time for Plank of the Week.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Stephanie that has messaged the show saying your guest Virginia Martinez, the Spanish politician, was incredibly brave. Thank you for putting her on the show. Let's get reaction to our conversation around Spain. They've got open borders. It's making their citizens less safe and it's making their people poorer. David is in Gloucestershire. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Mark. How are we all?
I'm very well. It seems that Spain's story has echoes with our own.
Do you know what? It's actually frightening because they are identical. What is it with politicians that are pushing the foreign nationals' agenda the whole time? They're actually trying to destroy our country, not just in here and in Spain. It's identical. Everything they want to do. And anybody with any brains and saying, this isn't right, this isn't fair, this isn't going to make the economy any better, they just get told they're wrong, they're stupid.
Well, this is exactly it. I mean, I've just got a message from Mark saying, I listen to your so-called news channel so I can listen to the opposition and the cranks that phone or message in. I've listened to your segment about asking your listeners if Starmer is a traitor. Can I say, I know you have to be subjective to get an audience, but how you or your audience can ring in and claim the PM of this country is somehow a traitor is ridiculous. What do you think about that? Mark thinks that Sir Keir Starmer is not a traitor to this country. What do you think, David?
Well, of course he's a traitor. You talk about scorched earth. Well, what is scorched earth if it's not destroying our energy system by getting rid of all our power, by blocking up our gas and oil fields, destroying our farmers by taxing them to death until they all go out of business, and then covering the fields with solar panels? If that's not what's the scorched earth, I don't know what is. We're going to have nothing. The economy is going to be absolutely so unbearable with debt. But where these people are so blooming stupid, and I've got to say this, what do you think these benefits, what are you going to get from your benefits? Even if you're getting benefits at the moment, your benefits are going to be worth less and less and less and less, because they will start taxing you at not just they will start taxing the benefits. They will then start taxing the food and the energy and everything with higher and higher VAT. So even if you're on benefits and you think, oh, aren't I doing well? You are going to have less and less and less and feel poorer and poorer. These people are stupid, but I don't know what it's going to take to wake these people up. At the moment, I'm sorry to say it, but people are too comfortable. I was sat here with my wife and I said, sorry, people they're too blooming comfortable. They sit in their homes and money arrives. They don't have to do anything for it. They're too blooming comfortable. And unfortunately, we are going to have to go through some tough times for people to wake up.
I think wake up is the right expression. Stay with me if you can, Daniel. I'm going to, stay with me if you can, David. I've got a voice note from Daniel on a very similar topic. Is Sir Keir Starmer a traitor? Mark on the text board says, no, he's not. How can you say such a thing? Here's Daniel.
Good morning, Mark. It's Daniel from Epsom. Of course Keir Starmer is a traitor. He's a Fabian Society communist. A wolf in sheep's clothing is their logo. What does he do as soon as he gets into power? He persecutes pensioners and farmers, and he goes after pubs. He wants to close our pubs. He hates Britain. He hates our heritage. He hates our traditions. He said he would smash the gangs, stop the boats, but he hasn't. If anything, it's got worse. Hundreds of thousands of men from the third world flooding in. Starmer has reneged on his first duty, the protection of the British people. Labour will not protect our borders, and Labour will not protect our people.
What do you think of that? How do you react to what Daniel had to say, David?
Well, he's absolutely right. It's spot on. And I'll tell you what, I've sat here and I've always thought quietly our military was quite strong, on the quiet.
Yeah.
But we've now realised how actual bad it is. And like the chap said, it is absolutely failed in their first purpose. I actually do believe that the country has now got to raise up. We've got to have a legal challenge now to say that this government has failed. It's supposed to be their legal promise to keep the country safe. Well, they're failing. We've got to have class action now, and that's what it's going to require. We need some very, very clever people, barristers, to take the country to or the government to stop this. I don't know how it's going to work, but that is what's going to happen.
Because you don't think that Britain can, survive another 2 or 3 years of this administration, David?
No, we've been failed. Well, we've been failed for the last 30 years. This is Blair. This is a 30-year Blair project, and unfortunately, it's going to be 30 years next year in 27. It'll be 30 years since Blair.
And of course, David, the Tories have to take their share of the blame.
Oh, they did nothing. They're just as bad. And I'm worried about. I'm a reform person, but. I don't know whether I don't think Farage is up to it. I don't know because unfortunately people have been blaming him for Brexit. I don't think he is. We've got to have a wholesale clear out of the civil servants. I mean, look at them. They were partying at the Iran embassy over deaths to their own citizens. I'm sorry, but doesn't that show everything you need to show? That is what they will do to this people, to the people in this country, if we don't wake up quick.
Wow, David, what a call. Dolan's Dispatch next. I'll be dealing with Starmer. You don't want to miss it.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Three minutes past 9. I'm Mark Dolan. This is Talk Breakfast. Lovely to have your company. Happy Sunday, one and all. Breaking this morning, and the President of the United States claims the new Supreme Leader of Iran may be dead. But has Donald Trump bitten off more than he can chew in the Middle East? And will all of us pay the price? With misery for Brits as energy prices spiral and the cost at the pumps continues to head further north, can the Chancellor Rachel Reeves afford to subsidise our energy bills? Meanwhile, Westminster insiders are predicting that Sir Keir Starmer's stint as Prime Minister will end later this year. But will his replacement bring back free movement in an effort to rekindle our relationship with the EU? Meanwhile, the scandal of BP and Shell making £5 billion since the beginning of the Iran war. You can hear the show, DAB Plus, in-app and online, or you can watch the show. It is a TV product now. Head to YouTube, search Talk, and up we pop. You'll be able to see Dolan's Dispatch in just a couple of minutes' time. You'll also be able to see all my amazing guests, and we've got some great names coming in the next 60 minutes. Join the conversation. My phone number is 03444991000. Lovely Tommy's on the phones today. Luke is directing our TV output. I'm also delighted. It turns out it's Lewis. It's a cast of thousands. Also, Jodie is producing. Dave is pressing the buttons. A very big hour to come. You can go to YouTube, search Talk, and up we pop. Lots to get through. As the saying goes, let's talk. And we kick off, as always, every Friday, Saturday and Sunday at 9:05 with Dolan's Dispatch. We know the Prime Minister is a man of consistently and resolutely bad judgment. As a politician, he's the broken clock that isn't even right twice a day, choosing to tear up the special relationship, seeking to reverse Brexit, rolling out policies which are killing the economy and making life a misery for ordinary people, giving away strategically important sovereign territory in the form of the Chagos Islands, scrapping jury trials, waging war on free speech, clobbering the pensioners and the farmers and the wealth creators, and having us, the taxpayer, cough up the bill for the Chagos Island surrender. But it's Sir Keir Starmer's character, his devious nature, his slippery demeanour, his instincts by default towards misinformation, misdirection and lies is the biggest problem. That is the root cause of all of his issues as Prime Minister. Because Sir Keir Starmer is a man who speaks from two sides of the same mouth. He lied to his own party whilst presenting himself as an ultra-left-wing candidate for the leadership before instantly shifting to the right following his victory, ditching all of the policies that he had promised to deliver to those who voted for him, including scrapping the House of Lords, nationalising the utilities and the redistribution of wealth. None of it happened. He didn't care because he didn't mean it at the time. Like all charlatans, Sir Keir Starmer manipulates language to his own ends and butchers the truth with words. This is, for example, the first Prime Minister who's growing the economy by shrinking it and smashing the gangs by helping their business model. Whatever he says, the opposite is the truth. That is Orwellian doublespeak. He's a master of it. And apparently, stoking inflation, racking up debt, killing growth and reawakening the old enemy of unemployment. Apparently, do you know what that is? That's called fixing the foundations of the economy. You're right. That is stabilising the economy, according to Sir Keir liar. This is the grown-ups in charge, with a corruption minister sacked for alleged corruption, a transport minister sacked for nicking a mobile phone, a housing secretary sacked for not paying her stamp duty. Yes, folks, that is the grown-ups back in charge. Starmer played the moral virtue card when he became Prime Minister, presenting himself as one of the good guys, decent, upstanding, except that it was revealed shortly after his election as PM that he was provably the greediest member of Parliament, having received £100,000 worth of freebies over the last stint of the previous Parliament. Add to that the small matter of a billionaire donor paying for our wealthy Prime Minister's suits, spectacles and tickets to Taylor Swift and the Arsenal. And then there are the U-turns, which is about more than just political expediency. It's character. The endless U-turns are a demonstration of a shifty personality, a man who stands for nothing, a man whose word is not his bond. Sir Keir Starmer can be trusted with nothing, let alone the fate of the British people in his hands. Least of all, representing the best interests of this country, as he plays sectarian politics, nervously telling British Muslims in Westminster Hall 2 weeks ago that he wasn't involved in the early stages of the US action against Iran. Of course, he should have been. And keeping his globalist friends in Davos happy by calling out the imaginary far right in this country, following anger around Southport, rather than focusing on the real threat to this country, not the imaginary far right, which is a fairy tale dreamt up by lefties. The real threat to this country, radical Islam. At best, Starmer is running scared. At worst, he's feeding the monster. And then there is the Peter Mandelson affair, which is Starmer all over. He apologised for, and I quote, believing Peter Mandelson's lies when appointing him to the most important job in British diplomacy, UK ambassador to the United States. So Starmer says, I'm really sorry that I believed Peter's lies. Now, this gave the impression to you and I that Mandelson had sat there with Starmer face to face over a cup of tea in number 10, with Mandelson saying, don't worry, boss, I'm a changed man. Well, it turns out that the two men had no such conversations whatsoever prior to or following the appointment. Starmer never spoke to Mandelson, and therefore Mandelson never lied to his face. But Starmer gave that impression in his public remarks, the impression that he had been lied to. Now, the reason why he sought that route is because he wanted to mislead the British public. He wasn't being honest. And in my book, given that this is a pattern of behaviour in public office, the Prime Minister was lying then and he's lying now. This is a man who has thrown women under the bus by ignoring the reality of biological sex, which is a stain on his character. He's thrown ordinary Brits under the bus by gaslighting them when they raise concerns about Britain's failed multicultural experiment. A Prime Minister who labels people as extremists for noticing the enormous societal and economic cost of mass, uncontrolled, legal and illegal immigration. Sir Keir Starmer is the master of devious doublespeak, a man who's supposedly securing our energy supply by shuttering oil and gas fields, placing us at the mercy of the international oil and gas markets. This is the leader of the party of working people that's putting working people out of work. You couldn't make it up. Starmer is a lawyer. Yes, he is. But he's a liar too. In fact, the Prime Minister is the living embodiment of Pinocchio. He's wooden, he's robotic, and his nose gets longer every day. 03444991000. Your reaction. Is Sir Keir Starmer a traitor to this country? Georgina is in London. Good morning, Georgina.
Good morning, my darling. What a wonderful monologue that was. I applaud you.
Well, that's very kind of you to say. Others would argue, Georgina, if you say the Prime Minister's a traitor, that's a ridiculous conspiracy theory. He's a proud patriot fixing a broken country.
Well, they're obviously not living in this country, Mark, because anyone who has eyes in their head and ears to listen knows that Keir Starmer is a traitor. I think that he's the very definition of the word traitor. He sold us out to China and prioritised the Islamic community before the indigenous population. He's taken away our freedom of speech and wants to tag us like cattle with digital ID. He's given away sovereign territory that wasn't his to give. He's allowed immigration to escalate to unsustainable levels that we've got to pay for, giving these invaders incentives that would have them swimming across the channel, never mind boating across. And he's prioritised these border invaders before our people. He has put every man, woman and child on offer by placing these individuals in every town and city in our country, not knowing anything about their background, resulting in horrific rapes, assaults and deaths. He's revelled in the persecution of our veterans, our farmers, in fact, every aspect of our indigenous society. He has left us in a position that we are totally vulnerable to our enemies, having no way in which to defend ourselves, feed ourselves, or indeed warm ourselves if, God forbid, we were attacked. He stood in Parliament and lied through his teeth to his colleagues and to us. He's a danger and a threat to our national security, giving jobs to the boys, disregarding advice and warnings from his peers, because he always knows best. He's decimated our economy to the point of bankruptcy. We can't even afford the repayments on our national debt. He has taken away Britannia's dignity. He's made Britain look weak and cowardly in front of the whole of the world. I could go on and on till the end of the programme, Mark. The bottom line is that this government are not working for the greater good of our country and our people. And if they do not work for and on behalf of us, then they work against us and they cease to be our government and they become our enemy. And that's what's happened.
Almost 2 years in, they can't still blame the Tories, can they?
No, they can't. They can't keep using the same old excuse about the 14 years of Tory rule. They were supposed to be the adults in the room. They promised this country they would turn things around. They lied. It's as simple as that.
Do you think there's an issue with the Prime Minister's character? Because I do.
I think he has no character. Like you said in your monologue, he is wooden. He is mechanical. He is worked by other forces. This is not our Prime Minister. This is a puppet.
A puppet of whom, Georgina?
Well, I think that Tony Blair is still Prime Minister of this country. I think he's the one who pulls the strings.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because we mentioned the Conservatives, Georgina, and in many ways they preserved Tony Blair's legal and constitutional legacy, which has made it so hard for us to have policies which are in the national interest, including deporting foreign criminals.
Absolutely, I agree with that. Every word you said. I think that the Labour government took the baton from the Tories and they ran with it. That's what they've done, and we're the ones who pay the price.
And then you've got Theresa May, who calls herself proudly woke, who signed up for the economic suicide of net zero when her chancellor at the time, Phil Spreadsheet Hammond, said it will cost £1 trillion.
Well, do you know what we're paying? We're paying more than money in this country at the moment. We're paying with lives. And that terrifies me. We're having attacks every day now. We're having murders that are getting brushed under the carpet and not talked about. Things have got to change because we are in danger now with this government. And it's not just the Prime Minister we need to get rid of, Mark. We need to get rid of the whole Labour government. Something's got to give.
I will say that a few callers have suggested that Nigel Farage may be the answer, but one or two of my audience think Nigel's not up for it, that it's a false dawn and that the leader of Reform UK will let people down if he wins. What do you think?
Well, I think you can't please all the people all the time, and there has going to always be the naysayers. You're always going to get the naysayers, no matter how good a job you do. You'll always have someone stood at the back shouting that you're not doing a good job. This is just a fact of life. You can't please everyone. I think Nigel's doing a great job, and I think he's got the best intentions for our country and our people. I'm not saying that Nigel's going to fix everything, because, my God, we're in such a mess now. It's going to take at least a decade to get up off our knees, Mark. But if we all pull together and we all start doing what should be done, then I think we have got a chance of bringing this round. But if we leave this government in power for much longer, it's going to be an impossible task to turn this around.
One thing I'll correct you on, Georgina, you said you can't please all the people all the time. Well, you please me every time. Thank you for a brilliant call. Have an excellent Sunday, and I hope you had a great birthday party with your excellent 17-year-old son. The remarkable Georgina there. Let's take a listen to a voice note on whether Sir Keir Starmer is a traitor. Is that strong language? Let's have a voice note from Kitty, if I may, David.
From Kent here. The guy that wrote in saying that Starmer isn't a traitor is either one end of the spectrum. He's either the lazy, benefit-scrounging cretin who is a burden to us all, or he's the other end, the white liberal living in a white gated area. He's overeducated and thinks that actually makes him intelligent, whereas actually these liberals and lefties prove beyond doubt that having a degree in no way indicates you are intelligent at all. He's a disgrace. Starmer is a traitor because he hates this country, and he needs to go back to his lefty Guardian type echo chamber and stay there.
Thank you for that, Kitty. How about this from Boz? Is Sir Keir Starmer a traitor? Here's Boz.
Morning, Mark, and a breakfast team. Travelling Boz here. Is Starmer a traitor to this country? Well, you know, work it all out. What's he done? He's given away the Chagos Islands. He's turned his back on the British people. He's more interested in close to Europe, distanced himself from America just by his actions, doesn't stick up for the working person. Mind you, he doesn't know what that is, doesn't know what a woman is, panders to a certain group of people, and they will keep him in power. Based on the fact is that he's like someone you put in the stocks where everyone throws stuff at him and the rest of them are behind him doing the policies. Yeah, it's sad. Another 3.5 years of this. Ridiculous. It's going down the tube. Starmer out. But then again, who goes in? Have a good show.
Thank you, Boz. We are between a rock and a hard place, aren't we? Is Sir Keir Starmer a traitor? 9:19, this is Talk Breakfast.
Coming up on tonight's Plank of the Week.
25% of migrants use Britain as a cash machine.
Fury as Sir Winston Churchill is axed from banknotes.
And Keir Starmer is named the most unpopular Prime Minister ever.
It's time for Plank of the Week.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
What I could really do with on the show is a proper journalistic brain. Who better to welcome into the studio than the former editor of the Sunday Express and now leader writer and columnist at the Sun newspaper. David, top of the morning.
Morning, Mark.
The Starmer-Mandelson row rumbles on, and it's interesting, isn't it, as a story, because I don't think it's one that people are discussing down the pub, but at the same time it feeds into the image of a Prime Minister that is not straight with the British public. He's apologised for believing Peter Mandelson's lies, but then it transpires he didn't have a conversation with Peter Mandelson. That's a problem, isn't it?
Yeah, he's hidden behind this line about Peter Mandelson lied to him, but then everybody knew that Peter Mandelson was a serial liar. And in fact, if you start looking at the documents which have come out, and they've only released a tiny fraction of them from within Number 10, he was warned by many people saying this is a reputational risk by hiring Peter Mandelson. But he didn't even interview him. He left it to Lord Doyle, Matt Doyle as he was then, his head of comms, to talk to him. It turns out that Matt Doyle hardly spoke to him himself. They were friends.
And Matt Doyle and Morgan McSweeney, the two people vetting Peter Mandelson, who were protégés of the former business secretary under Gordon Brown.
You know, one could suspect, rightly or wrongly, that they owe their careers to Peter Mandelson because he groomed them and nurtured them as young political workers. They did quite well for themselves, ending up in Number 10. So when Peter Mandelson applies for the job as ambassador to the United States, then perhaps it's payback time.
Well, indeed, and I think that the Prime Minister's verbal smoke and mirrors do him no favours, and I think that he's done it again because, I don't know, tell me if I'm over-interpreting, but I feel that when he said, I apologise for believing Peter Mandelson's lies, that gave the distinct impression that the two men had sat down and had a conversation. That was certainly my interpretation of it. And therefore, given that no such meeting happened, I feel misled.
Absolutely. And there is, in fact, a move afoot by the Conservatives to get the Ethics Commissioner to look at whether Sir Keir Starmer misled Parliament. Now, that sounds nothing to us as people outside the parliamentary bubble, but in Westminster that is a big deal. It's like contempt of court, lying to the Commons.
Oh, and it in principle would be potentially a resignation issue, because of course it was Boris Johnson that was, I think, accused of misleading Parliament in relation to the Pincher affair. Is that right?
Absolutely right. And you know, you look back at Boris Johnson and what happened there, and the anger which was displayed by Keir Starmer at the time for the lies over Partygate and all that sort of...
The piety, the pearl clutching.
Absolutely. And now, of course, he's in a mess himself, a bigger pickle for far more serious lack of judgment, decisions that have been made, and possibly misleading their Commons as well.
I just think that the great Achilles heel of the Prime Minister is he's just not able to be straight with people. That's not his instinct as a public figure. He always hides behind lawyerly doublespeak, doesn't he?
Absolutely. Instead of saying, I made a big mistake by hiring, it was, I apologise for believing his lies. Well, this man keeps telling us the two big things Keir Starmer tells us. One, his father was a toolmaker. I don't know whether you knew that, but...
Well, I tell you, breaking news at 9:25 in the morning. He definitely made a tool, a useful one.
Absolutely right. The other one is that he was a lawyer. He worked as a lawyer in the
Chief
DPP,
prosecutor.
and I brought some gravitas to the job.
Put lots of people in prison, didn't he?
Absolutely, yes. And there he was. And you think, well, you're a lawyer and you didn't cross-examine a big liar like Peter Mandelson. You didn't even ask him to give evidence, never mind cross-examine him. You just gave him the job.
Rubber stamped him all the way through. And it's not something which is at the front and centre of the focus of my viewers and listeners, or indeed perhaps your readers at The Sun. No. But it's the image, isn't it? It's the perception of our Prime Minister that makes this story so damaging.
It's background noise which adds to the big picture at the front. The big picture at the front is the cost of living is a complete mess.
100%.
The other big picture is migrants. It still hasn't gone away, which is linked into that. They're undercutting us for our jobs. The whole country's going to rack and ruin. And on top of that, you've got his dithering over the war and his and all this going on. So it just adds to a general layer upon layer of feeling that he's incompetent. He doesn't have a political brain. He's got no vision. And he's basically leading us down the the slippery slope.
Well, I'm really glad that you mentioned cost of living, because that is the number one issue facing my viewers and listeners. And we have a voice note on that, David, from Elle. Can we take Elle's second voice note for now, please, David, on helping her kids out?
You can afford to have children. When I had my children, we managed to live off my husband's wage, which was very, very, very low. He used to bring home £1,080 a month, and our mortgage and car loan was £600, but I still managed to get by on £580 a month. And our house was, I think, 3 times the salary. Now, they can't afford to buy anything. There is no social housing, and a 2-bedroom flat is about £1,150 a week renting. Then on top of that, if they're both going to work, the childcare's £1,600 a month. So they've got £3,000 in costs before they've had that child. Who on earth would do that? I look after my grandchildren, both of them, for 20 hours a week to help out, or I wouldn't have any grandchildren.
Devastating. And how about this from Jim in response to my caller, Georgina?
Hey Mark, this is Jim from North London. Just a very quick voice message. Georgina for Prime Minister. My word, she absolutely nailed everything wrong with this pathetic and despicable government that's in power at the moment. Well done, Georgina. You're a superstar, my dear.
Well, there really is public anger, and there's anger among some of the 9.5 million people that voted Labour in July 2024. Can Starmer turn this around?
It's going to be very difficult now. You get a feeling that he's gone past the point of no return. I mean, the hatred for Keir Starmer is quite visceral. Now, I know the man quite well, and he's a likeable, very pleasant man to do business with. But you try telling people out there who don't know him, and that they really dislike him. And it's worse than you ever got with other unpopular prime ministers. It's worse than people were
even Boris, I would
Johnson.
suggest, yeah,
absolutely,
because he still had that core of supporters.
He still had something, but with Keir Starmer, people are blaming him for everything now. He really is in a bad place, and I can't see how he can turn it around. It's going to take a miracle, and of course, the cost of living, the economy. We had the figures out earlier this week saying that growth was zero. Don't forget, Keir Starmer used the G word. He brandished the G word every other day. He's been saying it since 2022. The only way to get Britain moving again is through growth, growth, growth. He invoked the education mantra of Tony Blair. And what growth have we had? After 20 months of Labour, zero. And now, of course, they've blamed Brexit. Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, is making a speech later this week in which she will say, we need to get closer to the EU because Brexit is the cause of all our troubles. And of course, now they'll also blame the war in the Middle East and say that's the reason the prices are going up.
And before she was blaming the tariffs?
Absolutely. But if we'd have had a resilient economy, if we'd have made all these changes and got things moving in the right direction, we'd be able to survive what's going on now. But it's just going to get worse.
Most definitely. Well, we have a big reaction to my conversation with Virginia Martinez from the Vox Party in Spain, very unhappy about high levels of immigration in Spain. And it seems that what's going on in Spain has very similar echoes here. Let's take a listen to a voice note from Ben on that issue.
Morning, Mark. Ben from Birmingham. Listening to this Spanish lady, what they're going through in that country, it's hard to believe that it's not all from the same playbook as exactly what's happening in England and other European countries. It's exactly the same behaviour. Indigenous people to the back of the queue, Islamists and Muslims to the front, and immigrants. What the hell is going on? All our countries just going down the pan. It's disgusting. Great show.
Well, thank you for that. Here's Russell, who lives in Spain.
Hi, Mark. I've been living in Spain for the last 3 years, and I'm afraid that the goodwill that the illegal immigrants are getting doesn't extend to the Brits. We've just had to renew our TIE. It costs the best part of €3,000. We have to prove we have a clean criminal record.
Wow.
We have to prove we have an income of €34,000 per year per couple. We have to prove we have private health care. And yet these people that come here, no right to be here, are getting everything for free. Pedro Sanchez is basically like Starmer. It's the two sides of the same coin. They're both leftists. They are completely ruining this country. Great show, mate.
Wow, now that's really damning, because what that suggests is that in Spain, where they're going to grant upwards of 1 million people who are illegal immigrants legal status, meanwhile, productive, economically very active Brits in Spain are going to have to go through the ringer to prove their right to be there. Another response to our Spanish conversation from Suze.
It's Suze from Northumberland. Just two things quickly. Firstly, very concerned about Spain's actions on illegal immigrants, coinciding with this Labour government probably going to reinstate free movement. Is Spain doing that? Because they know then that a lot of these new Spanish citizens will head across to the UK, they'll get rid of them, just thinking. Also on democracy, now that we no longer live in a democracy, I think I'm ready for a military coup. Please can we organise that and have it headed up with Chris Parry? I think it's the only solution to this appalling government. Is Starmer a traitor? He absolutely 100% is. The proof is there. What's the saying from Orwell? The party asked you to not believe everything you see and everything you hear. That was their final and most insistent command. Can't remember the quote exactly, but that's what they're doing to us. They need to go.
Susie paraphrased it beautifully. Front page of the Sunday Express, fresh spike in migrants applying to be UK citizens. It's an exclusive, it's a big story, and I'll get reaction from the Sunday Express's former editor next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, I'm delighted to say at 9:34 that with me in the studio is the former editor of the Sunday Express, one of the most experienced journalists in the country, now, of course, leader writer and columnist at The Sun, no less. What a career, which continues apace, David. But I'm pleased to say, because you know why? Form is temporary, class is permanent.
There you go.
Now, David, what else have you got for us? Because you're sitting on some very big stories today.
Well, yes. I mean, we were talking about Keir Starmer and how awful he was. Or is. There are some stories around today about who might replace him. And the one which seems to be doing the rounds now is that Yvette Cooper, the Foreign Secretary, is being put forward as a possible leadership contender. In Labour circles, they're talking about this openly with none other than Ed Miliband, the climate change zealot, as her running mate. Now, this is being tipped as a caretaker role, and the other name that's floating around is John Healey, the Defence Secretary, who's an impressive character, but again he's on the more steady, dullish side. He's not a massively charismatic personality, and not the
progressive flag bearer that perhaps those backbenchers and the party membership might be attracted to. He's
in the sensible wing of the party. Yvette Cooper, to the soft left, would gain some ground. Still, though, the most popular person in the Labour circle out there in the country is Andy Burnham, but he hasn't got a seat. And I'm sure he's desperately trying to find a way back into Parliament right now as we speak.
Because it's a bit of an open goal for him, really, if he can get into the Commons, right?
Well, absolutely. And the only two, he's the only person who is ahead of Nigel Farage as the best possible Prime Minister by 1 point in the opinion polls. So Nigel Farage is the most popular because Andy Burnham is not even an MP. So he needs to become an MP to stand a chance. So Wes Streeting, they think there's a problem with him and his links to Peter Mandelson. Angela Rayner hasn't sorted out her tax affairs investigation yet. So there are lots of problems with the other contenders. So Yvette Cooper, if that's a dream ticket, though, I think there's a lot of problems.
But also, I think you'd have continuity Starmer, wouldn't you? Because she's more of a moderate figure on the party. Like you said, she might hoover up a couple of soft left votes, but ultimately she's a Blairite figure, isn't she?
Absolutely. And she also... They're also keen to get a woman as Labour leader, because the Conservatives have had 3 women prime ministers, never mind leaders. So they're very keen to do that. So that could have a bit of legs, that story, but we'll wait and see what happens.
Well, indeed, and she didn't really cover herself in glory as Home Secretary, did she?
No, and I remember Shadow Home Secretary. It's seen as a graveyard, the Home Office, for political careers. Theresa May was in there for 4 whole years.
Fair play to Theresa May.
And did do well. But one of the reasons, I believe, is that her shadow at the time was Yvette Cooper. So some of the blows she could land on Theresa May, she was throttling back on, because there were issues such as rising migration and other such things. And really, deep down in her own heart, she was not against migration on a grand scale.
That's very interesting. So you could argue that Yvette Cooper almost kept Theresa May in post.
Absolutely.
Because I think Theresa May was one of the longest serving Home Secretaries in British political history.
And she didn't say very much, really, as Home Secretary. She didn't do very much, really. I mean, I interviewed her once as Home Secretary, and I think that was one of only 2 or 3 interviews she actually gave while she was in that job. Yeah. And then she went on to become Prime Minister. And again, Yvette Cooper then became Home Secretary, and we didn't really see very much happening there, and she's been moved to a job in the Foreign Office.
Meanwhile, what's happening with Sir Ed Davey, do you think?
Well, the Lib Dems are having their spring conference. Did you know that? Did any of your listeners and viewers know that?
It's classified.
Yeah. It's being
state secret.
I don't even know where it is. It's somewhere up north, I think. But they've got their spring conference on, and there's whispers floating around there that it's time for Ed Miliband, another one, Ed Davey, to cut the clowning. Don't forget, during the general election, he'd do a bungee jump, or he'd come down a slide, or he'd arrive on a moped or some ridiculous stunt, and he believed at the time that this fun was the antidote to boring politics, and that it would do well. Well, they did win quite a few seats, but of course the joke is wearing a little bit thin now, and they're worried that the big opponent of Labour has become the Green Party. Zach Polanski, some may argue another clown without the clowning, is doing really well in the polls. He won the Gorton and Denton or his party won the Gorton and Denton by-election quite well. So they now realise that if they're really going to try and make inroads to sweep up some of the disaffected Labour votes, they really need to get a bit serious. And there is talk about Ed Miliband. I keep saying Ed Miliband.
Well, it's a Freudian slip.
It is, isn't it?
They've actually both had a catastrophic impact on our energy policy.
Absolutely.
Because, of course, you'll remember, David, during the coalition government, which, by the way, in my view, wasn't all bad. They got that deficit down, but it was Ed Davey who was very proud in announcing that he would cancel our nuclear projects because, of course, they wouldn't come online till about 2022. Well, we'd bite your hand off for that nuclear energy now, wouldn't we?
Absolutely.
And it's the same man who has a case to answer in relation to the Post Office scandal.
He was the Minister, the Paymaster General at the time.
And so reportedly ignored pleas from some of the big campaigners to actually engage with him, to meet him, and to address their concerns.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a big issue, a big skeleton in the cupboard of him. He has seemed to have escaped. It's come out from time to time, but he's got away with a lot of the criticism for that.
How much scandal lurks within Reform UK, do you think? How many skeletons are in that closet? Because the Sunday Times have done a number on the Deputy Leader, Richard Tice. Tice avoided 600k in tax, say the Sunday Times. Question about the Reform, you know, if there were skeletons in the cupboard, wouldn't they have been found by now?
Yes and no. There are certain sections of the media who are keen to discredit Reform. The Guardian, for instance, and the Mirror, and their job. I'm told that people within the Mirror see it as their job to make sure that we do not have a Reform government. That is their mantra at the moment. However, people are not really looking at them too closely at the moment because we're 3 years away from a general election. Scrutiny will increase, though. The big problem, I suspect, for reform is not the people at the top, from Nigel Farage, Richard Tice and co. It's the 650 candidates they're going to have to bring in, because it's very difficult to build a party from scratch, and it's a new party, getting new candidates in and knowing that they've been vetted properly. They've got no experience, some of them, which is why they're taking so many Conservative defections into the party. But Richard Tice, I mean, he's handled it quite well, this statement here. I mean, it's quite complex, but he had a company called Quidnet, and through various tax avoidance schemes, he's managed to reduce the amount of tax he would pay, all legally, all above board. However, he says, well, don't you want somebody like me running the government? If you had somebody like me in the Treasury, for example, I would know how to make the finances work properly for the UK. And you want somebody who knows their way around the system and to be running the tax system and running the economy of this country.
Well, that's right.
So it's a good answer.
Find some money-saving schemes and some loopholes for the British taxpayer.
Absolutely.
Should he be in the cabinet? David, what a thrill. You've got a very busy day at The Sun today, haven't you?
Yes, indeed. Got lots to write about.
Well, look, I cannot wait to read it, because your leader columns in The Sun are just worth their weight in gold. My thanks to the former editor of the Sunday Express, and of course now very much ensconced at the Sun newspaper, David Wooding. So much more to come. Is Sir Keir Starmer a traitor to this country? 9:43 Talk Breakfast.
Coming up on tonight's Plank of the Week.
25% of migrants use Britain as a cash machine.
Fury as Sir Winston Churchill is axed from banknotes.
And Keir Starmer is named the most unpopular Prime Minister ever.
It's time for Plank of the Week.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
9:46 Talk Breakfast. A few of my callers and listeners and viewers have said that they want change, but they're not sure Nigel is up to it. Nigel Farage. Here's Hev on a voice note.
Good morning, Mike. It's Hev from Kent. I am really concerned about everything that's going on at the moment. I have total faith in Nigel Farage. After all, he is a man that got us to vote for Brexit, which took him out of a job. So anybody that says he's after money, needs to think again. I think he'll keep his party in control. I think he's got what it takes. He's been in politics for a long time, but the sooner he gets in, the better. I mean, for God's sake, everybody give him a chance. Please don't split the right. I mean, that's the last thing we need to do, and Rupert Lowe, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I heard him say that if he doesn't get what he wants at the next general election, he's out of here. Well, that's not very patriotic, is it? I'm sorry. And my vote goes to Nigel.
Hev, thank you for that. A brilliantly considered and well-articulated voice note. Loved all the calls, texts and voice notes today. Bit of housekeeping. I'm back Friday, Saturday, Sunday of next week. Cannot wait. Looking forward already. Big Jezza Kyle is live tomorrow from 6. Live in the studio now is radio legend Alex Dyke. Good morning, Alex.
Good morning, Mark. I need a favour.
Go on then.
Can you say hello to my mum for me? Now, I know that's a no-go area, but it is Mother's Day, and she thinks you're a fine young man, and she agrees with everything you say.
Well, listen, she's a wise lady of excellent judgment. More importantly, she gave the world Alex Dyke. And for that, she must be congratulated. Is your mother Mrs. Dyke?
Mrs. Dyke, so could you just say, hello, Wendy?
Wendy, we love you. You reared a good un. And happy Mother's Day, my lover. Blow your kiss. And can I just wish a happy Mother's Day to all of the mums out there listening and watching. And if you're unlucky enough not to still have your mum, then may God bless her memory as well. Because we're loving the mums. And I'm so glad you reminded me that it's Mother's Day, partly because I must go to my darling mum with a bunch of flowers.
From the nearest filling station, no doubt.
Of course. Listen, let me tell you that Jet doesn't just sell unleaded. It sells dead roses as well, and out-of-date Ferrero Rocher.
Yeah.
The problem you've got with the old Ferrero Rocher is peeling off the reduced to clear little label on the box is very hard. You've got to use a kettle to boil it off.
Yes. Yeah, I've heard that. The other thing is, of course, we both left it too late to book anywhere to get in for afternoon tea, haven't we?
I'm afraid so.
So
we're in the doghouse on the naughty step already.
Going to be the McDonald's drive-through later. Fillet of fish, Mum. Right, OK, I've got...
Have you ever been to the drive-through?
Yes, I've been to the drive-through, and I don't know if they're all the same, but my local Mackie D's, if you go off menu on the drive-through and say, I want a gherkin taken out of my cheeseburger, they say, yes, sir, no trouble. Could you just go and park in Bay 1? I'm thinking, what? Park in Bay? We've only got 4 things on the menu.
That's ridiculous.
Surely you could
create a crisis just by getting rid of the gherkin.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I was told you're a fan of a big cucumber. I've actually seen the photos.
You are naughty. Remember, my mum's watching and listening, Mark.
Most definitely. We'll be on our best behaviour. Listen, you're sitting on some very big stories for us this morning.
Some fascinating stories. This one makes my blood boil. How much do you think the BBC has splashed out on consultants? Bearing in mind they've got top flight managers, the DGs on over £500,000 a year. How much do you think the BBC have paid for consultants over the last 4 years?
Well, I would hope it wouldn't be more than a couple of £100,000 tops.
It's a little bit over that. It's £25 million.
That is extraordinary.
So that's 150,000 licences. Now, we assume that the money we give the BBC is spent on programmes. But, of course, it's not. So BBC chiefs have splashed out more than £25 million on outside management consultants in the last 5 years, despite the corporation employing a vast army of highly paid senior figures. So that story is in the Sunday Express today, £25 million.
Well, it shocks me because you've been an elite-level broadcaster for decades, and you're a very, very iconic figure within BBC local radio. Here we are, radio and telly at Talk. And according to my understanding of what we have to do here, you've got management who employ the staff and establish, the rules and the direction of travel, the editorial, sort out the invoices. So that's management. Then you've got a producer. Then you've got someone that presses the buttons. That's about it. So what do these consultants do?
Well, they probably sit in their ivory towers having lots and lots of meetings. And as I said to you a couple of weeks ago, Mark, the thing about the BBC's comedy drama W1 it's tragically funny, because it's like the people that have passed that don't see the irony in how bad this makes BBC management look. And more on the BBC. This is page 21 of the Mail on Sunday. Claudia Winkleman has got a new chat show.
I watched it.
I haven't seen it. She's beaten Graham Norton in the battle of the viewers, but the viewers are low. The audience hates it, or some of the audience are very unimpressed. One viewer wrote that the show, that they came up, actually, they took this from a viewer, Mrs. Merton vibes, but nowhere near as fun, and people have been harsh on it. What did you think?
Well, I think that she's a very nice lady. I also think she's a very talented presenter. I think she's a character. I think she's quirky. I'm a fan. But the show was very low energy.
Yeah.
The lineup wasn't great. I mean, Jennifer Saunders, she's fantastic. Of course, she's a comedian, you know. But I mean, Jeff, what's his face? Jeff Goldblum
from Jurassic Park.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And his career is nearly that ancient. So it didn't really pop for me. And I felt that she was slightly out of her depth. I think, like, over promoted. I think she's really good hosting a strong format like Strictly. She's brilliant at that.
Yeah, she is.
But you get found out when you're the host of a chat show because it's about your personality. You look at Graham Norton, big personality. Michael Parkinson, big personality. Wogan, for goodness sake. And I'm afraid that I just think it's a promotion too far.
Well, I totally agree. I mean, they even made this mistake with Clarkson. If you take the star off of the vehicle, their comfortable drive. Davina, that only lasted a few episodes and was a massive flop for the BBC in 2006. So they're calling it a bit of a disaster today.
So how's it doing? Have you mentioned ratings?
Right, so it got 200,000 more viewers than Graham Norton got the week before, but that's new.
I'm going to do an advisory. It's the first show.
Yeah.
I mean, next week she's got some Irish comedian that I've never heard of, and I know the comedy circuit inside out. Got Guz Khan, who's in a sitcom. Most people haven't heard of him. And then Niall Horan, who's the boring one from 1D. So I think this is a slippery slope, my friend. I think that the ratings will half by next week.
I think so. And I think the trouble is you get people who are celebrities, they're very famous. Everybody thinks they can do a radio show or they can do a TV show. And there is a knack and a talent to doing it. I'm looking in the eyes now of a talk show superstar.
Listen to you. You've obviously been drinking early. I tell you what, it's about big personalities. Graham Norton, big personality. Jonathan Ross, love him or hate him, big personality. Michael Aspel, Terry Wogan, Michael Parkinson, big personality. The alpha male, the ego. That's what you need. Claudia, I love it a bit. She's too nice for this job.
Yeah.
Too nice.
Yeah. You've got to eke something out of the guest to make it worth you and I investing time on it.
Well, do you remember old Michael Parkinson's clash with Meg Ryan?
Yeah.
And another one, he had a falling out with Helen Mirren because he talked about her breasts. And it was a kind of viral moment back in the day.
Yeah.
And it was because he didn't back down. You know, he was mild-mannered and gentle, but in the end, he's a strong personality, old Parky.
Absolutely. A TV legend. Now, this is interesting. I don't know what you think about this. The BBC plots to steal viewers from ITVs this morning. So we know that ITV's in the right state. We know they've lost loads and loads of viewers. We know they're getting rid of studio audiences on game shows and things like that. So the BBC now think that they are going to extend the running time, the on-air time of Morning Live. Now, this is a programme hosted by Helen Skelton and Gethin Jones. Now, Gethin Jones is very, very polished. He's very, very professional, and he's probably a really nice guy to have around for Sunday lunch.
Yeah.
But that programme with those two is as dull as cold dishwater.
Yep.
And the BBC tried this years ago. When Richard and Judy were on fire at ITV back in the day, they gave Anne Diamond and Nick Owen the same kind of show on the BBC. They got them over from ITV, and then they shackled them with BBC rules and regulations, and this is going to be exactly the same. The only reason the audience has gone up for Morning Live is because this morning has got so bad. But these audiences, Mark, they're diminishing very quickly.
Shocking. Well, numbers go up when you're on. What else have you got for us? You've got the bit between your teeth, haven't you, today?
I have. There's another intro. This headline is interesting because the BBC kind of damned if they do, damned if they don't. This is more or less in the centre of the Mail on Sunday. BBC misogyny? Question mark. No, the real reason Strictly sacked only female pro dancers is that women viewers lust after men. So most of the people who watch Strictly are females. They want to see handsome, debonair men gliding across the floor. So that's quite an interesting story. I've got one more if you've got time for it. It has nothing to do with the BBC. This is the Sunday Telegraph. Why it's time for men to wear proper shoes in the office again. So
amen to that.
Yeah. So this is interesting because apparently Robert Peston was seen on ITV News last week as the camera panned out wearing red sneakers. He's defended his decision, saying, I do wear trainers on air. I've worn trainers on air for a couple of years now because I'm on my feet all day, running around the whole time. Well, so are the army, aren't they? But
Correct.
You don't see them in trainers.
Also, any good podiatrist will tell you that traditional proper shoes are the best thing for your feet. Apparently trainers might be comfortable, but they're not better for your feet.
No, we're not going to show our feet and what we're wearing, are we?
I shan't. But mine are stilettos because I'm going through a confused state. Alex, it's an interesting one. Did you know, I'm glad you mentioned this story, because Donald Trump's made the news with shoes as well, because he's ordered his cabinet to wear proper shoes. He was very unimpressed with their footwear. He's got a favourite brand, and Oprah style, he's been buying them shoes and sending them the shoes that they've got to wear them. They want to keep their job.
Well, apparently, if you turn up smart, it creates a very strong first impression. I mean, this is all common sense. It shows leadership potential as well. It looks like you're mentally switched on. That's why I wear a jacket for our YouTube viewers and our TV, so I look mentally switched on.
That's a lovely tweed jacket.
Thank you.
That's like a full English breakfast for a moth, what you're wearing there.
Well, thank you very much. So I look like I know what I'm doing, even though I don't. That's why I wear the jacket.
What is it? Dress for the job you want, not the job you've got.
You got it. So Stephen Fry was knighted by the King, and guess what? He turned up in trainers.
I mean, not only would I deny him the knighthood, I would send him to the Tower for that.
Yeah.
You know, that is treason. That is grand treason. What is your preferred shoe of choice?